My name is Donny Dust. I was born in Flint, Michigan, kind of like south of Detroit. And I moved around a lot when I was a kid, but eventually wound up here in Colorado when I was, I think it was probably like 6, and then grew up in Highlands Ranch, Colorado, and then continued moving around and eventually joined the Marine Corps, and then got out of the Corps and decided to come back home. I've always called Colorado home because it's, Detroit's great, but,
Well, I'm from Youngstown originally, just south of Youngstown, so
there you go.
Same type of.
You know that area.
Yeah, it's not. It's once you come here, it's like, why would I go back?
Exactly.
Unless you had to go back, you won't go back. So,
Michigan, that whole area, it's got great fishing, ice fishing, walleye, pike, muskie. You can't go wrong fishing in that area. And you got to go, the UP, kind of north of Detroit in certain areas to kind of do any hunting. But Colorado just kind of has that draw, that little bit of wild, So I think having 2 sons, this is kind of where I wanted to raise them. And, between the skiing, the snowboarding, the climbing, the hunting, just everything in general is, you can't go wrong with it.
It's better.
Yeah.
It's just better.
It really is.
It is. And it's like the Rocky, I love the Appalachian Mountains. I was born in the Appalachians, raised in the Appalachians. But once I got to the Rockies, I was like, it's not, these are real mountains.
It's night and day, right?
Well, the Appalachian Mountains are so much older than the Rockies.
Yeah.
That's why they're like, and these, I try to tell people, I'm like, when you go up and down the Ohio River, these towns are all in little hollows. Yeah. Like, it's just a hollow, and it's a town, and these people never leave that hollow. Like, the closest airport is 50 minutes away in Pittsburgh, and, most of these people can't afford, like, the average income is like $13,000, $15,000 a year. Like, for them to spend $1,000 on an airplane ticket, to take their whole family somewhere, that's not going to happen. Yeah. It's not realistic. So they just don't do it. They just don't leave.
Yeah. It's kind of like the saying, grow where you're planted. You know what I mean? If you got everything you need and everything you want there and it's working out.
Yeah.
Shit, no wrong.
Why leave?
Yeah. Why leave?
And I get it. But, after I never even left the country until I was actually 26 years old.
No shit.
Never even left the country.
Wow.
Like, my first time flying on a plane was my freshman year of college.
No kidding.
I flew to Norman, Oklahoma to play the Sooners, and it was like, I was shitting my pants on the plane. I was like, what the hell is this?
Is this going to hold all of us?
I was like, is this thing going to really fly in the air? There's a plane, 100 people on a plane, 100 football players, and then all the staff and everything. I was like, this is out of control. But yeah, once I got drafted here, I was like, man, this is like, I don't ever want to leave here. Yeah. So I get that.
Colorado has a draw, and I think as more people kind of come here, they experience Colorado in like a certain facet. They like the downtown scene. They like going and doing some of the hikes. But I think there's a whole other side of Colorado that not a lot of people will go to, if you will. And I'm okay with that. Find your comfort levels. But I'm fine being able to walk out in the woods, for 2 or 3 days, hit a high mountain peak, find some great fishing, and not see another soul anywhere. I'm okay with that. So.
Yeah. No, well, that's to me, that's like the best part about going out.
Yeah.
Just getting out there, right? And like, you're doing on a whole nother level than me. Like, I'm taking like the best gear I can get, to go out. You're going out like you could just walk out there with nothing and fucking survive. And that's kind of how we started even communicating with each other, because I was super interested in learning how to do that, because I feel vulnerable not knowing how to do it. Like, it makes me feel vulnerable, especially after being out there. And like running out of water, or like, because Lane will tell you, how much water do I drink?
Ridiculous amount. And the food when we're hunting, like,
that's it, man.
He's packing in, like, if I go in, I'm 195 pounds, and I can live off I make myself live off from less than 2,000 calories a day. That includes my peak refuel. We're going out, and like by 11 o'clock, he's like, all right, time for a peak, which is about 1,000 calories. And then by 3 o'clock, he's eating another peak.
And then I'm hiking hard,
eating the same snacks I'm eating in between, twice as much. Yeah. And then there was that one day, I think he had 3 peaks.
I did.
And he was just bonking out.
We did like 12 miles.
Yeah.
but 12 hard miles.
Yeah,
you know?
well, there's a difference at altitude, incline, weather.
Yeah.
I mean, your body's going to experience it whether you're walking flat ground or not. But once you add in all those other factors,
and it's not like one of those. Oh, I'm hungry. I'm just a little bit uncomfortable because I'm hungry. No, it's like I feel like I'm just going to fall over.
Yeah, I need fuel.
And when you're up there walking on, especially in New Mexico, because it's you've walked around New Mexico, it's rocks. Everything is rocky.
Yeah.
It's just like rocks that just like you step on a big boulder and it just moves. Yeah. So you're like, you have to be on, you're like constantly, there's no like just casually walking. Like you're paying attention to every little step you take. And that just, all that burns a lot of calories. And especially when you're hunting, you're carrying your bow, you got your pack, you got all your water, and there's no fresh water there. So it's like, to be efficient, you have to just pack the water, pack enough food. And the one day I only had one peak, and then like, I was just like, dude, I'm done. Like I can't, like, I got to eat something. Like if I had 2 peanut butter and jellies, a peak, and like I had like half a dozen eggs for breakfast. So like I should have had enough food, but like I said, man, I'm just like crushing calories when I'm out there. I'm 290 pounds, like it's just, you're gonna crush calories.
And it's a hard thing to kind of, battle. I mean, I'm 6'2", a little shorter than you, just a little shorter, just for the record. And I'm like, 240, 245. But being fueled and staying hydrated are two of the biggest battles that I face. I mean, I've experienced hunger in different forms, and I kind of know how my body performs in that capacity. So it's given me the opportunity to kind of take that hunger, take that kind of, situation, and kind of adapt and learn from it. And I've found over time that as long as I'm hydrated, I'm not as hungry. I figure my hydration is probably the most important thing.
Yeah.
Because I can go without food for a couple days, but I mean, I've been 30 days in a swamp with no modern tools and just one dead hog. And, you butcher out the hog, you smoke the meat, you do all these things, but you're active every day. And it's not like I'm just going to sit around and hang around and keep the fire going and eat hog meat. It's like I got to go out and hunt more, I got to forage more, I got to split firewood. So it's the burning of calories based on really those tasks that you're doing. And walking, you are burning so many more, especially altitude, negotiations,
climbing, you're sneaking, like when you're sneaking, like stalking, like you're trying to be quiet.
Yes, muscle tension. You're down, you're low, playing the wind, wind's moving. I hear this, I see this, and you're trying to negotiate. Yeah, man, you're gonna burn
crushing calories, man. Like it's just gonna happen. So it is like it's a struggle, man, because I have to carry so much shit with me, and it's like, all right, what imagine if I had to go in there for like 5 days, right? How much shit would I have to take? Like that's when I was like, I need to learn how to fucking do this shit without having to take so much stuff, because it's just like I don't know what I don't know. So like
you just get really hungry.
You just get really hungry, and when I get hungry, like what happens? Like what do I start losing my fucking mind or something? Like I just don't want that. I want to be able to. I want to feel like if I got dropped off anywhere. Mm-hmm. I'd be okay. Like I'd figure it out,
Have you ever gotten to that point where you said, like I've had no food and this is how my body's it's like the marathon concept, right? So you never actually you run a marathon before you actually run a marathon. So on mile, 24 when you're getting ready to take a crap in your pants because you've loosened everything up, I'm okay. Mile 10 this, mile, first quarter, second quarter. You could equate that scenario into any situation, but like in hunting, how far have you pushed yourself as far as that hunger point? Like, because I always call it food drive. Like, you can go out, you can live in the bush, but there's things that will drive you to certain outcomes. Food drive is always one of the biggest ones. Staying, warm when it's summertime is not a big deal. Having a good shelter, you can deal with inclement weather, but it's always food and it's always water. So what's that comfort zone? Because if you want to get to a spot, I can bring you out in the woods and we can test that spot. I just need to make sure that somebody else is out there so you don't like lose your mind and be like, I'm gonna fucking rip your head off. I don't want to see you come out of a cave with your hands.
Well, that's the thing about the level of that I played at in football, like training camps and stuff. Like I've put my body through some of the most grueling tight. 90 degrees with 80% humidity, full padded 3-hour practices. 3.5-hour practices, 2-a-days in high school, 2-a-days in college. Yeah. They don't do those real 2-a-days anymore. But like when we did real 2-a-days, where it's 2 full padded practices, like 3 hour. So you got like 6 hours of just like, dying, and you're just cramping up nonstop. And So I've put myself I know where my threshold is. I can go. The thing is I want to be efficient when I'm out there hunting. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm like, once I start feeling like low energy, I don't want to get to the point where it's like, I need to make a push on this elk or on this, like this bull is like, I just need to push a little, I need to push for this like mile. And you might have to really ruck hard for a mile to close the, the distance on an animal. Cause he might be here, but the wind's going towards him. So now I got to go up and around.
Yeah.
But I got to do it fast. But I don't ever want to be like, oh, I can't because I'm too tired.
I got you.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So like, I think it would be fun to like go out and really test and see how far can I really take it.
Yeah.
How much hunger can I really withstand? What can I really put myself through? Because that's a question mark. And I'd like to know, and I'd love to like challenge myself. Yeah. So I think that'd be fun. I think I say it's gonna be fun now, but it's gonna
it would suck.
It would suck, but you just have to embrace that suck. Like if you go into something knowing it's gonna suck, it sucks a lot less.
Yeah, for sure. So. And what you'd be ultimately obtaining is what I like to call ground truth. So you would have a ground truth into what your physical capability is at that point, whether you do have to commit that extra hour to move around and get a better shot at an elk. Ground truth is the one thing that we can all use to really determine our outcomes. So you have a ground truth in football. I have a ground truth in military. Certain things we have a lot of different ground truths, but that is what we rely on. Knowing, can I go a little bit harder? Can I go a little bit farther? And I think for someone like you, you've endured quite a bit through football, through your own hunting experiences, your outdoors. It's just now kind of tipping the scale. What is that ground truth for Derek Wolfe? When I am hungry, I got to commit for another hour and a half to get the best shot. What is that ground truth? Because once you experience it, then it's very easy to work through it. Just like your 2 a days, you're like, this is nothing. I'll be fine. I've got 3 more hours before I kill someone and eat them. I'll just commit around this elk and take that shot. So ground truth is pretty much, how the school that I run here in Colorado and then down in Texas and New Mexico is people are wanting to obtain that ground truth. What can my body endure? What does it feel like 3 days in with very little water, very little food? And I've got to walk, 10 miles today, another 15 tomorrow. It's that ground truth aspect. And I think I can provide that to a lot of, clients that I bring out from all around the world, that if you want to experience hardship, we can experience it. But more importantly, we can overcome that hardship by, certain knowledge, skills, and abilities.
How do people sign up to take your class?
So I only run private courses and small groups. So I like to do one-on-ones where it's myself, that client, and it is nonstop. It's more of a kind of a continuing experience compared to like, all right, your next class is X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, it's like we're going to go out there and we're going to do it.
Pretty much, we're living it and we're doing it at the same time. So, and things are kind of set in certain ways where maybe the first 4 or 5 days we're going to move to an area, we're going to build everything we need. The next 5 days we'll move to another area, and during those 5 days we're going to be, trapping rats, shooting grouse, doing everything we need to do to kind of get some food until we can get something bigger. And if we don't, then that's part of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have
no
a guy,
guarantee.
Yeah, there's no guarantees. I have a guy coming out from Ohio for 20 days down in the Chihuahua Desert in January, and it's going to be hot during the day, cold at night, and we're going to be moving through canyons, trying to take aoudad, any quail. We eat lots of rats, lots of mice. You'll probably need about 1,000 of those. But I'll tell you what.
What do you get, like 100 calories out of a rat, probably?
It's like 12. But if you skewer the rat or the mouse, burn the hair off, and then just pop it in, you're crunching bones.
You're eating the bones, yeah. Well, that crunch is probably a little nice.
It's not bad. It's like it's like an almond. But yeah, that's kind of the goal for people. And then when I bring folks out, I kind of say, what is your path? Do you like to utilize a lot of modern stuff? Do you want to go 100% primitive where we're using, stone tools and loincloths and animal hides, or you want to kind of have that mix in between? I call it a high tech, a low tech, and a no tech. And everyone can kind of fall in these different praxis, these different realms. And it kind of works the same way with, hunting or fishing or just really doing everything. Do you want to go no tech or you want to go high tech or find that ground in between? And a lot of folks, they They want to go no tech, but they quickly realize, like, wait a minute. So you're telling me I don't get like a granola bar or any jerky? I'm like, no, we got to shoot something, smoke that meat, then we can have some sort of jerky.
And that's with primitive weapons too.
Primitive
right?
weapons,
like
yeah.
no compound bow,
No compound bows.
no rifles,
Nothing. Sticks and stones.
no knives.
No knives. We'll make our knives.
But that's what I'm saying. Like no modern technology.
Zero.
Like you're just going out there and figuring it out.
Yeah.
See, I feel like that's the way to do it. Like if you're going to do it, that's how we're going to do it. When we do it, let's do it.
Absolutely.
No tech. Let's just.
No tech.
We got to pick. Like here's the thing though. Do we want to go? Are they wearing shoes and boots, or are you making?
Yeah, we make them.
Okay.
We like sandals, boots. And if we go, let's say February, because that's always a good cold time, or even December, whenever. We'll go to a spot. We'll craft some things, and we'll build the stuff that we need. And if your boots, suck, then your feet are cold. So that's another great way of learning. Of like, man, I need to take the time and really focus on doing this. It's the same concept really overlays everything in life. I can rush through this and maybe get some of the outcome, or I can take my time, really figure it out, and then pick up the knowledge, skills, and abilities associated with that task. But before we go any further, one of the things that you need in order to do this, and I'm kind of jumping the gun, but I brought you some items.
Oh, sweet.
These are some things that I think will help in your path. Let's see. All right. So that is a stone blade. That is a stone hand blade that you can stick in your pocket. That's the style I like to butcher bison with.
He said that's the style he likes to butcher bison with.
It's good. It's a good.
Feel that. Dude, that thing is solid too.
Yeah. And then these.
This thing's sharp.
Yeah, these will be your shooters. We'll throw those on some primitive arrows, some atlatls. But all those are the sort of things that we craft and we build and we make. This is kind of a Paiute style blade where you can put this on your wrist and you can be cutting meat, doing what you need to do, drop the blade, remove the meat, flip it back up, and get back to cutting, so you never actually lose it. But that right there,
how many times have you set one down and been like, now it's like covered up and
you're looking for
hide and meat.
Yeah. It happens, but that's
dude, this is sick, man. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Those are just a couple blades. Like if we were to start, this is probably all you would need to really get the job done.
Shit.
How much time is in all of this?
In all these, I'd probably say maybe. It sounds really horrible, but maybe like 2 hours.
Really?
Yeah. Once you figured out the napping process, it doesn't take too long. Something like this, mixing the pine pitch glue, having the blade, like all of these sort of things will. They'll get the job.
So what do you
done.
mix to make the glue?
So this is pine resin, the sap from a tree.
Yeah.
This is moose poo, and then a little bit of wood char. So wood burning in the natural environment is a very organic smell. So like some people will put urine on them and all that sort of stuff when they're hunting. I like to find a wood tree, that char, and I like to camp next to that tree, or I like to kind of put it on my clothes. It's a very natural smell. So when I find those trees that have been burned down through some sort of historical burn, I'll collect up the black char from it, and then I'll grind it into a powder. I'll heat up some pine resin, and it turns into a liquid form. I'll add a little bit of moose poo or deer poo or rabbit poo because it's real fibrous. Drop that in there, mix it up, and that is a glue that will hold this in place for the next 1,000 years.
Dude.
So all those are tools. Like this is that hafted blade. This is a hand blade that could be turned into any number of things, but it's the way to go. This would go on an atlatl. Those would go on some arrows or atlatls.
What do you think these weigh?
Oh, man.
How many grains do you think these are?
Oh, shit.
It's pretty. It's
got
some mass to it. Like, feel this.
You think 150?
I was thinking 200.
Yeah. I think closer to 2.
Not crazy. Like what you would think when
No,
you're
not
putting
what
a
you would
stick
think.
on
Right?
it.
It looks like it would be a lot heavier.
And for these, you can put them on various types of arrows. So like on the bows that I shoot, everything is an instinctive shot, straight off the knuckles, and I don't worry about necessarily the mass of said named point.
Right.
I craft them for the specific target. So like this right here, I'd throw on an atlatl and put that into the side of a hog because I know it's going to make entry. More importantly, as soon as that animal kicks, it starts to incise and cut. So when I shoot, my goal is not to put an arrow through the animal.
To get penetration.
It's to get penetration, thoracic cavity, lodge itself, let it move, lacerate, and then eventually bleed out.
And we were talking about this not long ago, but imagine how many animals that like the natives probably wounded, because they didn't have enough, like their bow was just kind of, the string was like a little loose and they didn't have time to make another one and they're just out there trying to get something.
Yeah, there's a lot of those factors in there.
But you think about it, like people still find a lot of arrowheads just out in the wild. So like they must have just been, they had it down. So it's like, so to leave a couple arrowheads behind was nothing for them.
Yeah. I think to create an arrow point and you have, the knowledge to do it, it's not very difficult. When it comes to like specific blades or specific, projectile points for, say, something like a mammoth or, something significantly large, you got to get a hell of a shot in. More importantly, I'll use, for example, the last bison that we did. The bison was just on its tail end of losing all of its winter coat, and we were throwing atlatls into it. The darts were catching on the fur and dragging the fur inside the wound cavity, decreasing the overall penetration into the actual animal. So it's those sort of factors that, you shoot a rifle, you don't have to worry about it. Certain bows, you don't have to worry about it. But when you're employing a primitive tool, a primitive hunting weapon, it's a whole other factor you need to consider. So it's like, do you craft that point to counter the hair so it cuts and pushes past the hair and then narrows out? So if I throw this into an animal, I'm going to drag hair the whole way. But if I refine my point where it's a tip up front and then tapers down, I can move past the hair. So there's a lot of kind of trial and error and science and various things to it that can, ultimately get the results. But
it's even like a fix. Like I don't like to use mechanicals on things like bears, things with with a big fur. Yeah, because I don't want to risk that thing opening. Bingo. Early, just a little too early before it penetrates.
Bouncing off.
Then it just bounces off, and you're like, "What happened?" So, what I'm pulling with that bow though, 80 pounds, 33-inch draw, like
you're good.
I'm good, but still, I'd rather like when I'm shooting those kind of. That's why I use like an iron will or something like that for like a bear. But for deer and elk, honestly, like I do like that mechanical because it just flies straighter, And I know that it's gonna fly to where I tuned it. Yeah. But that's the other thing is I really want to get. Like somebody told me once that like instinctually shooting is like, does a quarterback measure the hashes when he throws a football? No. Right. It's just an instinct. Like, know how far you got to throw the football. Yeah. And it's like, even I was never a quarterback, but I know how to throw a football. And like when I see somebody running a silent, I know where I need to put it for him to get it. So it's going to be, I feel like that's going to come natural for me. Yeah, absolutely. With the bow. I think it's just going to come with like, so that's why I think you have to practice so much. Yes. To be efficient with it, because, even like a guy like Levi Morgan, who is, watching, just being around him and watching him measure distances down to like he'll be like, oh, that's 33.2. Yeah. And I'm like, what? I was guessing 35 yards. I was like, to me, I do everything because off of 5 yards because of football. So like I could see 5 to 10 yards. Like I could just see it because running 110s like what that looks like. For sure. So, but he says it's the sound of the arrow and how fast it gets there. Because most bows that he's competing against, all the highest they can shoot, the highest speed they can shoot against is 298 feet per second. Gotcha. So he knows what the arrow sounds like from the snap of the string to the target being hit at all those distances at 209. He said he would just listen to it. I see. And on a CD, he said he had a CD player. Oh shit. When he was young, and he would just listen to those distances over and over and over again. So he was able to just like, walk up to a target and be like, he could tell. Yeah. And then he would shoot and just 12 ring it. And I'm like, that's awesome. I'm like, dude, how the hell? He grabbed his right-handed bow and shot it left-handed. And like through these trees and everything. I was like, dude, this is like next level. That's impressive. Like impressive to me. Like, but you're talking about like the Michael Jordan of archery, Yeah. Of like compound archery, and then seeing guys like South Cox, like just seeing him, what he has to do to get close to an animal.
Yeah.
With his trad bow. He actually made me one. It's over there. I haven't got to start shooting it yet because I haven't had any arrows made.
This guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like, even that, like the work that went into that, like you're not shooting bows like that, right? Your bows are way more primitive than that.
Yeah, it's just a stick. It's a stick, and probably most of the bowstrings, when it's warmer out, are the intestines of like an elk or something like that.
So how do you do that?
So
What's that process look like?
Yeah, so you pull out the intestines, you split it, an even split down, it's a tube, so you just make an incision really. And then on the inside of the intestine, there's a slight little film. You scrape all of that out, and it looks kind of like mucusy. So you scrape that out, and then I wash it in a stream or in a bucket, whatever the case may be. And then I add a little bit of pickling salt, or if you're out in the woods, you can add a little bit of wood shark to it, but more on the ashy side. And that's going to add some preservation to it. And then once it's all said and done, I kind of pull it out, and then I stretch it. So I'll tie it onto something, and then I'll take a stick on the other end, and I just start twisting it. Stretch, twist, and stretch, and then eventually it comes to a smaller diameter because it's been twisted. And then I can take that bowstring, kind of fold it onto itself, and then reverse wrap it back together and make a bowstring.
Dude, that's...
Yeah. Yeah, it's one reason why I was single for so many years. But
how many women want to talk about making bowstrings out of intestines?
Yeah, only my current girlfriend.
I can't get my wife to look at a dead deer, look at a picture of a dead deer.
My girlfriend's pretty awesome. She'll call me and she'll be like, "Hey, I just saw fresh roadkill. You want it?" I'm like, "I'm on it," because we eat a lot of it, but she's very much.
There's nothing wrong with roadkill.
No, man, I've been eating it for years.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. Like it's been hit by a car. Like
perfect.
How long has it been there?
Yeah, and 90% of the time it's a headshot, right? So they hit in the head, they tumble, they roll onto the side of the road. In great state of Colorado, it's really cold at night, so it's just perfectly frozen.
Yep.
Hang it up, start doing your business.
And do you have to call like Game and Fish when you do that? Or?
Yeah, so like for roadkill permits, essentially you have to keep the sex on, you got to keep the antlers on. So you have 72 hours to go get a roadkill permit, which allows you to bring it to a processor to legally have something out of season, and then the permit quantifies why you have it, and then they can process it out. But you have to return any antlers, and you have to just show sex on it when you go to get your permit. For me, most of the time, if it does have antlers, it's not a big deal. I'll happily turn it over. I just really want the meat and I want the hide. So, it's cost you $0. It's absolutely
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
It's a great way of getting
in Ohio. In Ohio, if you know how it is. If there's a dead deer on the side, we just grabbed it. Nobody cared. Mm-hmm. But out here they're way stricter on the rules.
I've had State Patrol write me a ticket for it before. Not a ticket, like they wrote me a little thing saying, "Hey, you can take it. Here you go. If Parks and Wildlife gives you a hard time, you talk to me. I'll confirm in my report that it was roadkill." And I've done that before because he was like, "Are you going to take it somewhere or are you going to do it yourself?" I was like, "Oh, I'm doing it for my buddy." I had a buddy call me when I was working the oil field, Juan, and he goes, "Hey, I just watched this dude smoke this deer. I want it." It's perfect. So I went out there and helped. He goes, "But I don't want to talk to the cops. Because his English wasn't great. He's like, I just don't want to talk." He goes, "I don't want to talk to him." I was like, "All right." I drove over there. It was like, "Hey, my buddy wants the deer." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, he just wrote it out." Yeah. This was 10 years ago, statute limitations. And the state patrolman was just like, "Dude, if you're going to process it yourself, I'll just write you this right here. Here's my card. Here's my he gave us a little thing for it that they did. I don't know if this is still current. And then here you go, take it." And so they did that too.
Yeah. Nice.
It's just a CYA. If you're going to a game processor, if you do it yourself, I just do it myself and hang them up and get my boys involved. They love taking apart animals. They've been doing it for quite some time.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, the roadkill is kind of their thing. But man, it's free food, as I always say.
So let's go to. All right, so you said you played football in high school.
I did,
and then you played for a year in college.
I played my freshman year in college for Kane University. It's in like Newark, Union, New Jersey, and I basically played the season, then dropped out.
You just had enough of it? Well,
college wasn't for me. I enjoyed playing football.
What position?
Defensive end, defensive tackle.
So that's why you're so fucked up.
Pretty much.
Or you got to be fucked up to play the position.
Yeah,
you just have to.
It's It's always a constant. But yeah, I enjoyed playing, but I just did not like school. I was not a
Hated school.
I couldn't do it. It was not my jam in any way, shape, or form. Like if I was playing football, I was in a zone, I was happy. As soon as I kind of like walked off the field, I'm like, man, this sucks. Now what? You know what I mean? And then you look forward to the next practice. And once that season was over, I was like, I don't want to learn about economics. I don't want to learn about any of this stuff. It does not interest me. But I'm like, what would interest me is joining the military. I'm like, that sounds more my path. I was a very easy sell for the recruiter. He's like, do you like camping, the outdoors? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, all right, welcome to the infantry. He was like, fuck, this was easy. This is the easiest thing. This is way different than Full Metal Jacket. But yeah, so, I mean, I was 19 years old, enlisted, just as a ground pounder, heavy machine gunner, carrying, 60-pound crew serve weapons, 75 pounds, and laid rounds, wasted taxpayer dollars just shooting rounds one after another at tanks and all sorts of targets. And then September 11th kicked off, and then it was, time for war.
And it was on.
Yeah.
So what was your first deployment?
Oh, man. So prior to any sort of combat deployments, I did a couple to like Southeast Asia, the Philippines, Malaysia, a lot of like joint training. And then once the war had kicked on, I was in Ramadi, Fallujah, Corridor, Habbaniyah, Al-Qaim on the Syrian border. These are all in Iraq. And then a lot of those were specific when I was a counterintelligence, human intelligence agent. So I started off in the infantry. And then my wife at the time was like, hey, what do you think maybe you do something a little less shoot 'em up? And I was like, I don't know. What else is there? That's why I joined the Marine Corps, to go fight in a war. That's what we're, supposed to do. So looked into the counter intel field. It was kind of like you operate independently, small teams, and you learn a lot of languages. You deploy quite a bit. And I went through that process. And it's the easiest way to kind of equate how that works is you have the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA. For the military, for DOD, you have kind of counter intel, human intelligence agents. And you go through a variety of schools. You go through interrogation school.
What was that like?
It was awesome. It was a mind fuck the entire time, because they keep you up for days on end and you're interrogating guys, and then they find out you have a baby on the way, so they play a baby crying. They mess with you just nonstop, and it's to break you down, but then quickly you learn like, this is all a game. You're not going to break me. It's like going through like a SEER school.
Yeah.
They stand you in a line, they drop your drawers, and then there's like some female like mock interrogator, me like, oh, look at all you like little men. You're like, fuck yeah, embrace it either way. I'm a grower, not a shower, that sort of thing. So you play all these games, and then once you graduate, you're out the door, you're deployed, and you start running clandestine sources, human sources. So there's a lot of different
And you got to create relationships
Yes.
with those guys, right? And get them to trust you.
Yes. Yeah. And so human intelligence is kind of funny. So, you have different intelligence fields, and human intelligence is the only one where people can physically lie to you compared to something that's electronic, like a phone, right? Phone's here. That's where it's located. Hopefully it's attached to the bad guy. In the human intelligence world, your subject can lie. So some of the things you have to pick up on are those verbal and nonverbal indicators of deception. So you go through a lot of training around that, and you essentially go out into a local population based off of the mission, and you're given requirements, things we need to know. And from those things we need to know, you go out and you target specific people through various ways, and you try to have conversations with them, and you ultimately determine, is this person suitable to answer said name requirement? If they're not, then you kind of cut them loose. If they are, then you start that kind of formal, informal relationship as running them as an asset. And then through various means, you meet them at times and locations and different ways to exchange information. Sometimes you're paying them money. Sometimes they want...
That's what I was going to ask you. What's the incentive for them?
There's... Usually it's money for most people. People are driven by money.
Yeah, because the risk is high.
Risk is super high. Because if they get compromised, they get their heads cut off, or something could happen
And their
to their families.
yeah.
So you try to figure out what their motivations are, and then you use those motivations in a way not necessarily as a tool, but as a continuum, a continuous driving force, a reinforcement of why they're doing something. Like, oh, look, I know we're paying you X amount of dollars. This is good for your family. This is good for your people. We need this. You need to continue on doing this. And they're like, all right, I'll do that. So you grow these relationships, and you use the information that they're getting to ultimately, save lives. That was my focus the entire time, was really saying that I will do anything to ensure that an 18, 19, 20-year-old young Marine gets to go home.
Yeah.
So whatever it takes, I'm doing it nonstop. And plus, with my infantry background, I was able to attach to a lot of various units, and we were able to do some pretty awesome things.
Yeah. Can you talk about any of that?
Yeah. I mean, there's
like, what was, you don't have to get into like crazy detail that you're not comfortable with, but whatever, like, to me, I love hearing these stories.
Yeah, man. Sure.
So like, whatever you think is the coolest and most impactful story, like, let's hear that one.
Okay. So there was a guy, I called him just the clown show. And because he would always try to come to these meetings, and ambulances or just weird vehicles, but it always looked like I could see him coming, and I would kind of like, do, like that clown song. But with him, he was kind of a lower level asset in the very beginning. He gave, good insight and info on weapons caches and potential targets. And then one day he came to me and essentially said, this guy, we'll just call him Jay, he is coming into town, and I want you to know about it. So I'm like, oh, okay, this is great. What do you know? So we started going through this debrief. Coming to find out, they have been longtime friends, like for years and years and years. My guy, the clown show, he kind of went on the good path, wasn't joining any insurgencies, and Jay left, joined insurgency, and was the leader of this specific group in the western portion of Al Anbar province. So I was like, oh, okay, this is really interesting. All right. So we went through this whole debrief, and where I was at, I was on a battle position with about, I don't know, maybe 25, 30 Marines, and there was probably 10,000 people in the city. So there's a lot of moving pieces, so you need some support. So I attached to an ODA, an SF unit, and we worked some things out where I was going to be able to get a AK-47 in the hands of the clown show that he would be able to drop into the hands of Jay. And there's certain devices and things that were going to allow us to see this transfer, eventually making it to Jay. And since he was such a high-value target, a lot of priorities went to him, a lot of assets went to him. And so I'm trying to train my guy on how I want this weapon to go into his hands, but I can't let him know what's in that weapon, because he could compromise it, he could use that, he could spoil the whole operation. So it's like me giving you a football and saying, all right, I need you to do X, Y, and Z with it, but keep in mind there's something in here that's going to let me know where this weapon is. And eventually, once it winds up in the bad guy's hands, you need to, work on a certain number of brevity codes to let me know that it's in his hands. So we go through this entire thing. I'm kind of training him, kind of sensitizing him to certain things. Eventually, I'm able to get the weapons in his hand, and then he has a meeting with Jay, the bad guy. He puts it in Jay's hand, and then myself.
And there's a tracker.
Yeah.
Right? Is it just a tracker, not like you can't listen, you can't hear anything?
Yeah,
it's just a tracker.
It's a GPS tracker,
okay,
essentially. And it, there's certain things with certain trackers that will allow other capabilities, but we'll just go with the GPS tracker at this point. So he gets it into Jay's hand, and then myself and 3 ODA vehicles, no doors, up guns. We follow this tracker deep into the desert, and it makes it to the top of this quarry. And when we're at the top of the quarry, basically we knew this guy, he was not going to, surrender by any means. So we get up, there's a tick, troops in contact at the top. One guy, boom, blows himself up. Another guy blows himself up. And then the main target is standing there. We move in, like 3 or 4 ODA guys, myself and this other guy, LTP. We're moving in, getting ready to, get down on this guy. And then all of a sudden, like 2 Iraqi police who were attached to the ODA, they jump over this mountain and just lay waste to this guy. And we're like, what in the hell are you doing? Like, we wanted to take him alive because it was a huge intel piece. Mm-hmm. But we also knew he probably wasn't. So it was kind of this dance, like we need to get to him, make sure he doesn't detonate. However, very likely that he will. The Iraqi police at that point took over and just shot this guy to pieces. the best part about this entire thing was we didn't want anybody to know that he was dead, because soon as someone dies, if you will, in that capacity, all their intel becomes useless because it's all old. So whatever continuing operations they have on their side, they're continuing because they think the guy's alive. So once he was dead, you lose a lot of that intel. So we're briefing everyone. He's still alive. He's still alive. Keep in mind, we have his body strewn out on the top of a Humvee in a body bag. And, we're driving back, and then I start getting calls from my various assets saying, hey, we heard that Jay's dead, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, not that I know of, and keep in mind, like, there's 2 exploded bodies, a couple other dead bad guys, and now him sitting on the top of this vehicle. And we make it all the way back. Sources are calling, assets are calling, hey, this is what we heard. No. And then the next thing you know, Clown Show is on the phone being like, I've killed him. I was part of the raid. I did this. I did something. I'm like, you're going to get yourself ultimately killed. We go through this. Sometimes they're not the brightest, but we went through this entire process, and I wound up paying the guy a large sum of money. But when it comes to like a large sum of money, you can't just give them, $100K, $10K, $20K, because they'll go out and buy a brand new house and a brand new car. And then it's like, who here, you suddenly have all this money? Where'd you get it from? Probably Americans. So over a period of time, the next couple months, I had to give him slow amounts of money because he was a freak. He was a clown show, and, could definitely compromise him. But I was able to use that same asset for multiple things like that moving forward, targeting different HVIs and large, IED sort of facilities where when you think of an IED facility, it's not like a factory and there's, little ramps and IEDs are coming out. It's like 4 or 5 guys, putting bombs together, that sort of thing. But, we did a lot of good with the clown show, the freak show. It was...
Yeah, it saved a lot of lives.
You're
taking those IEDs, those things, a lot of guys were taken out by those.
Oh, yeah.
So, if you can shut those things down, you're doing some real good.
And that's what this J guy was. He was specifically like an IED facilitator. And I'm talking the IEDs you don't even know are IEDs, where it's made out of foam cushion. So they would take a couch cushion, nice and thick, 1.5 feet, whatever. They'd cut out a plug, they'd pull it out, and now there's a chamber. And they would just take 2 wires, one on the end of the plug, one at the bottom of the cushion. And as soon as that plug would go down and touch 2 wires, it would explode. The munition is set off to the side, but when you're scanning, you're not going to be able to scan for that because it's foam. They'd make them out of big pens. You get 2 BBs on one end. And as soon as you disturb the ground and one BB slides and connects to the other, completes a circuit, you get an explosion. They would hang fish hooks off the edges of bridges. Humvee would drive by and hook you in the face, hook you in the eyes. Marines were getting hooked all the time.
Oh.
There's some crazy stuff. When you think about it, when it comes to like a conventional war is force on force, clearly identifiable uniforms, you follow a chain of command. When it's a coin of counterinsurgency, you have to follow the rules. They don't have to follow the rules.
Right.
It's completely
Which makes it very difficult, I'm sure.
And that's where guys in my specific MOS, that's where we had a lot of, input, because we knew what was going on. We kind of knew the pulse, that we was called the pattern of the Ville, right? The village, what's going on in that area, who's moving in, why are they moving in? Like, guys are jumping across the Syrian border, they're tending to sheep, but all the sheep have slices down their back with drugs and munitions shoved underneath their skin and then sewn back up so they can easily transport, weapons, munitions, and drugs across the border without anyone knowing. So
that's wild. I didn't know that. I never heard that.
Yeah,
that's wild.
Some crazy stuff, man. Some super crazy stuff out there.
Wow.
But you don't know about it until you find a guy that's like, yeah, I just bought 3 sheep and they all had these weird cuts down their back. So maybe he's gotten the sheep and the drugs have already been, removed. But why? What does that mean? What is the significance of that? What can we learn from other people? So hey, let's go to, some of the Coochie, or let's go to some of the guys that live on the borders and figure out maybe they got some insight. So it's kind of like a Scooby-Doo mystery with guns. Yeah. You just get to travel around and figure out who's who in the zoo, who are the bad guys, who are the good guys, and just kind of do your do your thing. But it's a high tempo, man. You're on 24/7, and my specific skill set with the guys that I would deploy with, it was routine. So if you weren't in Iraq, maybe you're down in like the Philippines, working against Abu Sayyaf group, an extremist organization, Southern Philippines, Zamboanga, Mindanao. and you're doing force protection. So it's you and one other guy. You're living in hotels. You're wearing board shorts and flip flops with a pistol shoved down your pants and a backpack full of money because you're trying to meet with various people, see what they know, make different payments, coordinate flights from here to there. You know, so and so's been kidnapped. There's been a bomb in the road over here. So it's you're on 24.
That's wild.
It's awesome.
I bet it was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. It got a little hairy at times, but
what was like the closest call you had?
So I had a couple close calls where dudes would just detonate themselves. We received the information that this guy was in town and he had kind of issued a fatwa or kind of a religious creed or dictate to say, hey, we need you to target some Americans. And when it's warm, you're not going to see a lot of guys wearing jackets. So we were on this patrol, and then we came around this corner. Prior to going around the corner, I think the young boy was like 7 or 8. He kind of, and the kids were great. Kids were a great source of information. He kind of came around the corner and said, hey, don't go. And he was talking to an interpreter. And the interpreter's like, hey, stop moving. So we all kind of harbor up. We sit for a second. We punch a guy out to the far right corner so you can see down the long axis. He's like, I don't see anything. All right, so we kind of pick up and go. The little kid's like, stop, I'll keef, stop. We keep going, and then a guy walks out from an alley and just blows himself up. Now, I was the second person in that patrol. The first person got a chunk of human leg bone jammed in his own leg. Like, dude blew up. He was at a good distance. I mean, we all felt the percussion. You kind of feel secondary frag will kind of kick up at times, and pebbles and rocks. But as this dude blew up, a piece of human bone from him landed in the first guy of the patrol in his leg.
What?
It's the quickest medevac I ever seen, because this guy's hepatitis and all sorts of shit. So, and it wasn't like deep, but it was enough for it to stick in, and him like, what the shit? He pulls it out, and we're like, holy cow! This dude blew himself up.
It's a piece of bone,
and it's a piece of bone.
That's wild.
So he got medevaced.
Was that the only injury, or was there?
Yeah, as far as that, there wasn't too much because he was at a little bit of distance, but there's been some, IEDs detonated in various convoys, depending where you're sitting in the convoy. It could hit somebody up front, you're in the back, you're like, fuck, man, that was just a flip of the coin, because you do a brief before you roll out. Hey, you're sitting here, you're sitting here, you're sitting here. And you're kind of like, well, is it my day? I don't know. I'm in the third vehicle. I'm in the first vehicle. Do they shoot the last vehicle and then shoot the front vehicle? Create a little funnel, and now we're trapped in between. Do they just target the front vehicle because we're taking a hard left turn at this mosque and there's an RPG site or there's a poo site? There's a lot of things that can kind of go down on the daily basis. But after a while, I think my mentality overseas was pretty clear. It's kind of the same mentality I have today, where it's like death is going to happen. It's the one guarantee we all have. So if we know that, and people die pretty routinely, if I know that is the chance, I can sit here and try to be afraid and try to do everything to preserve my life, or just say, fuck it. I'm going out. And if I'm going out with a fucking bang, man. Because it's a weird mentality to have, but at a certain point, it's like the only one you can really have.
Right.
And I think it ultimately saves guys' lives, because it's, you get troops in contact, they're close. Most people be like, take a knee. It's like, no, you run through that motherfucker and you shoot as many people as you can. You got an elk at 100 yards, easy target, right? But as, let's say, it's moving closer, you got to make significant adjustments to get it in there, right? But if I'm running at that target, they've got to make huge adjustments if I'm running at them. So you assault through, you do all these things, and it kind of plays into your mind, like, not that I'm invincible, but like, I'll accept whatever it is. This is why I'm here. I'm here to fight.
Yeah.
I want to fight.
Well, on a smaller but relatable scale, it's the same way with football.
Hell yeah.
And you know how it is. Like, if you play like, oh, I don't want to get hurt, you're going to get fucking hurt.
Oh, easily.
Like, it's going to happen. But if you play full bore, like you playing balls to the wall every single snap, and you're not really like concerned for you have to lose that sense of like, self-preservation, right?
Bingo.
You have to like kind of lose that. That has to go out the window. And when I go watch film, like watch plays and stuff, like, I'm like, damn, what the fuck was I thinking there? Like, and I really was just like, I just didn't care, because you feel like you get this like invincibility feeling where you're like, I don't really care what happens. I'm just trying to make I'm in the moment, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
So like I know it's a smaller scale because like my life isn't on the line,
But it's the same scale.
I think it's the same mentality.
Bingo. That's where it is. Because I mean, I've sat in the stands and watched you play. I mean, we used to have season tickets, and I mean, aside from the entire stadium howling, it's like when you did something and it was probably 100% of the time savage.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no like, that was a great tackle. I was like, he just fucking ripped this guy's head off.
Yeah, well, because you're going against offensive linemen.
Yeah.
From the point of attack, you got two guys trying to block you.
Yeah.
So you're fucking splitting double teams, and you're throwing grown ass men, around, and then you're tackling another grown ass man and stopping his momentum, and it's like. That is like, that's the drug that I miss.
Yeah.
From the game is that drug. Like, it wasn't even so much the roar of the crowd or the howl. Like hearing that howl was like, it felt really good.
Yeah.
It did because it was like validation. But what felt good was just like manhandling someone.
Yeah.
Because you don't get to do that in real life. Like,
No.
I don't get to do that. Like, I did this radio job, and like, I wanted to fucking choke guys sometimes. I'm like, I just want to fucking choke you. Like, you shut. Like, he called me an idiot. Like, something happened. I got called an idiot, and I was like, I will fucking kill you. Like,
That's beautiful.
And it's like I got to do that in my job. I got to fucking manhandle people, and even with like people that were my close friends. If we got in a fight on the field, we'd walk into the locker room and give each other a hug.
Yeah,
Like we just ripped each other's helmets off and fucking tried to kill each other. But like we walk in, once you step off the field, it's like, you shut it off and you're brothers again, but it's like, I miss that feeling sometimes, Do you ever like miss that? Like,
absolutely. Yeah. That was my hardest transition was leaving the military where it was teams. It was brothers. It was like, we were all there for one, goal, and that was to, win wars and bring our guys home and do our jobs. And then the day I left the Corps, it was like gone. I mean, I drove from California. I went and worked a contract in Maryland for like a government contract. And I was like, this is not for me, but I drove.
What part of Maryland did you live in?
I lived in Gambrels. It was right out, not too far from Annapolis, close to that whole like DC metro area.
Yeah.
It was a government contract.
Well, I lived there for 2 years when I played for the Ravens.
Oh, that's right.
So,
that's right.
So I lived right there in Reisterstown. You know what I'm talking about?
That's south of Baltimore?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Southwest of the city.
Yeah.
It's just kind of out there in the country. Like a bunch of CIA guys lived out there in the country there. So
that whole area is spooks and
it's
intel
crazy.
Guys. Yeah.
It's creepy almost, like super sketchy.
Yeah.
The kind of the intel guys that live out there. So, but it was
so many of them, man.
So you went to Maryland.
Yeah.
And how long were you there?
I was there for, God, that was probably like 10, 11 months. I couldn't function there. So I got out of the Corps, and when I left the Corps, basically everything I did in the military, they wanted me to teach a lot of Army guys. So, and it was two different branches. We kind of operate differently in certain capacities, but I had a very hard time, like, knowing that this guy over here who I'm teaching how to run an interrogation gets to go and deploy, and I don't get to, and they would like eat me alive. Like, all I want to do is just go there and get back into it because that's what I was good at. So I'm like, I can't be here in that capacity. More importantly, like Maryland did not offer that outdoor stuff that I ultimately grew up in and kind of always sought out everywhere I went. And I was like, I just got to get back to Colorado. So came back to Colorado and started up my own thing and said, all right, Uncle Sam took care of me. Now I'm going to figure this out on my own. No guaranteed paychecks. You got to just work and do it every single day. So
that's that's why I won't coach.
Yeah,
because like just watching a game, I'm like, what the fuck is he doing?
Yeah.
It's like I had a coach that his name's Bill Kolar, and he was like the best coach I've ever had. But it's because he played the game, so he was so fucking hard on us. But it brought the best out of me. It brought out the best of me. But like I saw where he would be like, he would try to get it across to people like, why can't you just fucking do it?
Yeah.
Because I'm the type of person like I don't want to be told twice, and coaches don't want to tell you twice. Mm-hmm. But then it was like you could tell that he just wanted to be on the field to show you like this is what it looks like,
Yeah.
So I don't know, even like my friend Emmanuel Sanders, his son just started playing tackle football. Mm. And so I went out, he was like, can you come out and help these kids, like teach them how to tackle?
Are you sure?
Yeah. And I was like, are you sure you want me to come do that?
This could be bad.
And he was like, yeah. And I'm out there like, look, take your, like, because when I was that age, they taught me
chest,
to
right?
run my fucking helmet through his face. Like,
Yeah.
that's how I tackled people as a kid.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, make him quit, you know, run
Yeah.
through his fucking face, you know. But now, like, I'm trying to teach, like, heads up football. And, like, I'm like, dude,
That's not you.
I'm like, let's, I was like, look, let's just run some drills, like some tackling drills,
Yeah.
and we'll do it, you know. But these kids, they all kind of wanted to catch tackle. Like, they just wanted to wait there and let it run into them and then, like, fall. And I'm like, no. That's how you get hurt.
Yeah.
I was like, be the hammer, not the nail.
Bingo.
You know, and like, but I still was like, you know, they just played a game the other day and I went down to it and it was cold. So it was Saturday. It was freezing. It was like 26 degrees, 22 degrees, something like that. So like these kids are cold, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, they're cold too. I was like yelling at the kids. I was like, put your hands in your pants. That's how you keep them warm. These kids got their hands in their pants, you know? Like,
That's perfect. Man.
but I was like, you know, they're cold too. So like, it's just, I don't know, my coaching style, I think would be, I feel like I would get super frustrated and probably get canceled out of that pretty quick, you know?
You probably have a team that would wind up just destroying other teams.
A lot of penalties.
Yeah. Hey man, penalties are perfect, right? I mean, I always think when it came to, you know, football, that was the precursor for me to really embrace the suck of the Marine Corps. Because the Marine Corps there's a lot of suck there, you know what I mean? Like you're hungry, you're tired, doesn't really matter. We don't care. Fight in the war, do our thing, that's what your job is. Football, athletics, sports kind of prepare you for that suck when you're like, man, I've done this drill 10 times. I'm super tired, but I got to do another 10 more times.
Yeah.
Or I got to play in the heat. I got to play in the cold. I think those sort of things are really what kids need. It builds like
True
resilience.
character.
Yeah,
It builds character.
And sometimes I just don't see it in a lot of venues, I guess you could say. So I know with like my two boys, I will give them that adversity and give them the opportunities to build their character. But I wish like sports and things, I wish they were like 20 years ago. I mean, I remember playing and just the bridge of my nose was always cut. My nose was swollen just from hitting people and the helmet just sliding down, just hitting this and just, I had this beard of acne from like chin straps and just this gnarly stuff, but I almost wore it like a badge of honor. Like, so you little pretty boys over there. Yeah.
Neck all ripped up and scraped up. Like just forearms and hands all bruised and
it was perfect.
cut. Like it was.
Yeah. And now when you think about it, like.
Because you look at everybody else and you're like, you pussy.
Candy.
You know?
I do it.
It's just.
I do it. And it's even
But I'm
worse.
sure like for you, the way that you live your life now, like I'm sure like I have a hard time just being in like normal public and like not just ripping someone's fucking head off for like disrespect, like not even they don't even realize how disrespectful they're being, you know. Like they don't even realize it, you know. Like when I'm walking through the airport, right? Like people not move, like me having to be the one to move because you're not going to move. But guess what? If I don't move, you're going to get fucking bounced out, and it's going to be a yard sale out here. Like if I don't, just from them bouncing off of me. So it's like like people just walk around like with this. Like they're not self-aware of anything that's around them. You know, like they have no idea what's going on around them. They're just kind of in their own world, got their fucking headphones in. Yeah. They could be beaten up and robbed at any moment. You know, it's like I'm always thinking about that.
Situational
I'm
awareness.
always thinking about like, how do I get the fuck out of here? Like, dude, we were at Disney and
I don't know how you did that. I mean, I know it's family time, it's Disney, especially with the young one.
The first day we went to Magic Kingdom and I live in a house full of girls, so it's like I have to do shit like this, right?
Yeah, no, you're good.
And so we go, and I got Roxy. She's 4-year-old. She weighs 40 pounds. She's on my shoulders, and we go to watch the fireworks at Magic Kingdom, and she fucking loves it. It's all worth it in that moment.
Hell yeah!
But then there's no plan to get everyone out of there, and next thing I know, I'm in the middle of like there's tens of thousands of people in there. And it's like a hallway, basically. You know, like a corridor to, the castle. Yeah. So the castle's where the fireworks are, and we're like in the middle of that. And then it was like no one was moving. Everybody was just standing still. And I was like, move. Yeah. I was like, I kept thinking, like, what happens? Like, what if I just decided to fucking barrel through this, because that's what I was thinking. I was like, and there's kids everywhere. So like somebody's going to get hurt, Yeah. What if there was like an emergency? Like what if something happened to somebody in here? Like what if somebody had like a heart attack or something? Yeah. Like, first of all, everybody's pre-diabetic in there anyways, So it's like, What if somebody had like a medical emergency in here? They would never be able to get to them. It took us forever, but I was able to most people are sheep. They'll just stand in line and wait their turn. Me, I'm like making moves, I'm like, follow me. Next thing I know, I look over, my wife's over here. She's the same way.
Yeah.
She figures it out too. So she's over there, and then we just like converged.
Yeah, you're doing signals.
I'm like, I'm over here. Right here. I'm like following this guy with he's got a stroller. I'm like, this guy's got a stroller. I'm gonna follow him.
You got a blocker.
Yeah, because everybody was moving out of the way for him. So it was like, but the anxiety that I felt, like at some moments where I was like, I didn't see a way out other than like go through people.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, people don't realize what could actually, things can go wrong, right? Look at what happened in Israel.
Yeah. That's
right?
a good, perfect example.
That music festival, you got this like EDM concert going on, right? And all these people, like next thing you know, there's hang gliders coming over, coming over, and they're just like, oh, what is that?
Yeah.
And then, so they're like, so even over there, we're like dangerous real close.
All the time.
Like all the time.
Yeah.
They're still unaware and still they don't have weapons. They don't have guns.
Yeah.
So it's like, that goes to another point. Why would I ever give up my weapons?
Bingo.
Ever. Why would I ever do that?
Never.
I'll never do it ever.
Don't blame you, man.
You have to, like, I don't care where I got to disappear to, but you're never going to take them from me. Like, I will live outside. Whatever you guys want to have your little areas where you do that, go ahead.
Yeah.
But I'll live outside of that, wherever I got to go. And wherever I got to do what I got to do to protect my family, I'll do it.
That's it. I mean, there's a lot of truth to that, because I think a lot of people, they live in this bubble of comfort, and very few times will they choose to seek out discomfort. And when they do seek it out, it's typically it's confined. There's rules, there's regulations to it. That's their level of discomfort. So I think for most people, they don't think about those things like situational awareness. What are the threats? And it's not saying you got to live every single moment to that, but certain environments dictate that sort of thinking. And I think Disney's one of them. One of those large concerts is another one. Anytime I go to a Broncos game, I mean, I was always looking like, okay, who's the one? Who's the one that's in my section that's going to get drunk and rowdy? And then my girlfriend or someone's going to be like, hey, you should do something. I'm like, well, look, just because I'm 6'2" doesn't mean I can. I will, but it's not going to go the way you want, because it's going to go to another extreme point, because all it requires is one bit of action on their part, and then it just gets escalated.
Yeah. When my wife was pregnant, we were playing in Oakland, and she had just found out, she was just like figured out we were pregnant, Gotcha. So I just come off the field like after a series, and she's like, like cheering, because I just made a big play. Yeah. So she's like cheering, and she's like right in the front behind the bench, and this is on a baseball field. Yeah. Right. So I see this guy shove her. Dude, I lost my mind. I jumped over the bench, ran over, like jumped up into the stands, was trying to get him, and the guy's like, I don't understand what's that. He didn't understand what was happening. Like, he could not understand why I was so mad. Yeah. And I was like, she's fucking pregnant, you piece of shit. Like, and they got him out of there, and they were like, what the? That's how everybody found out that she was pregnant, though, because they were asking me, like, why did you do that? I was like, oh, because she's pregnant, and this guy was shoving her, and they're like, oh, okay, it's understandable.
And probably every grown man was like, yeah, that makes sense. I would do the exact same
thing. But in the moment, everybody's like, this guy's a fucking psycho, Plus, I'm taking mushrooms before games anyways, right? So I'm like in berserker mode.
You're in that land, man.
Like when I see somebody touch even like poker,
Yeah.
But then like, we went to the, my wife and I just went to that ACL tournament, festival. It's the Austin City Limits Festival. Yeah. And there's a group there called Odessa that we like. I know Odessa. So we go to this concert, and these guys, it gets crowded, right? But it's like a chill vibe. I'm so big that people like, as long as I keep moving, they don't get too close, right? They don't get too close to me because they don't want to get elbowed. And like my elbows are like at their head. So they don't want to get elbowed in the eye and stuff. So like people usually kind of keep their distance. And these guys come in, and like the concert's already been going on for like 30 minutes. And these guys try to sneak in and get in front of us. And it's like jam packed. And I was like, all right, I'm going to let you deal with this, And to my wife, I was like, I'll let you deal with it. You know? So she's like, okay. So she tells them, asks them nicely, asks them again. And I said, hey, you guys can't stand here. And they were like, he turned around. He's like, all right, we're trying. And I was like, all right, I'll give you a second. And then like a couple seconds go by. I was like, hey, you guys can't stand here. Like, you got to go somewhere. And he was like, he like turned around. He's like, I'm fucking trying. And I was like, look, motherfucker,
that's it.
I'm not playing with you. I was like, get the fuck out of here, dude. They just like out of there. They fucking weaseled their way out of there. Cause like
that's it though. I mean, you got to do that.
But then everybody, and my wife was all like anxious about it. Cause like she knows what happens if I like decide to turn it on. Right. Like if I turn it on, it's not, nobody's going to stop it. Right. Like I have to like get it all the way out. And then like next thing I know, there's like fucking destruction everywhere, So it's like the people all around though were like cheering for me, like thanking me. Like, thank you. Cause like these fucking like, but that just shows you like nobody else was willing to do anything.
Bingo, man.
Like I wasn't the only one being affected by this. Yeah. Everybody around us is being affected by it, but nobody would say anything.
Yeah.
So it's like, who's going to be the guy to do something, right? And I think there's too many times where, look at this guy in Maine, right?
Yeah.
If there would have been somebody was carrying legally,
problem solved.
could have solved that and saved
like that.
Saved, as soon as he fired a shot, they would have been on him,
And I think people are afraid to act, to be honest with you. Like I always go back to, and I've used this, conversation with my two boys, is the very first time I met my girlfriend's parents. We were in Golden. They were coming out of Breckenridge. We went and had a beer at this place, grabbed a quick meal, and then they were walking their dogs in this park. So there was her parents, her grandmother, myself, and my girlfriend. We're out there kind of, doing our things with the dogs, and all of a sudden we hear a glass break. And all of our eyes kind of turned attention at the corner of this park. There's this one homeless guy, and the other homeless guy has this bottle getting ready to cut this guy's throat open. And instantly, like I could hear my dials going, tick, 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 like I was getting ready to go. And then my girlfriend, she just said, hey. As soon as his attention was broken, like fixed on her, I was like in a dead sprint and pretty much tackled this guy into his bushes. And then I literally had like a PTSD flashback. As I picked this guy up and kind of like suplexed him out of the bushes, bottle went to the ground. My hand was on his throat. And I'm like, you fucked with the wrong Marine. I went to this place. It was dark, but it felt right. So I'm squeezing as hard as I can. I'm like, and I'm just losing it. Everything's coming out of my mouth. Eventually, I go into like this detainee mode. When you get detainees that aren't cooperative, you kind of roll them over and chicken wing and you get him in this position. And I've got this guy in this position. And while that's going on, instead of everyone around is, boom, phones out. There's one guy, similar make and model, that's like, do you need a hand? I was like, yeah, grab his feet. One guy out of that whole group. So he grabs his feet. We're holding this guy. Cops come. They slam the cuffs on me. And then everyone's like, no, it's not him. It's the guy in the ground. Because I was, pretty
aggressive.
Man, it was perfect. I felt great. I'm not going to lie. It was a great day after that. Yeah. But, I mean, it was just one of those things where you're like, God, man. Miss those days. But when everything was said and done, filled out a statement, and then I'm walking back, and my girlfriend's dad goes, it's a hell of a way to make an impression. I'm like, fuck, goddamn right it was. But like, it felt like the right thing to do, but also like you knew exactly what you had to do. And that's where I think like someone like yourself in that sort of case, you knew exactly what you had to do. More importantly, you knew it was the right thing to do. And that's where I think people know what they should do. They want to take that action, but they're afraid. They're afraid. They're a little intimidated. Like, what happens if this person sues me? Or what happens this? If they got a gun, I'm like, well, then you deal with it as it comes at you. But you always try to start here because it's like an interrogation. There's a technique called a fear up, and you just start way at the top. And once you're at the top, you can't come back down. You can't be like, I hate you. I want to cut your head off. But let's be friends. Now I'm calm. So it's kind of like I got to go from here, and then I can get to here. And then once it's done, then it's like, all right, now another beer, let's go for a walk, watch the dog shit, I'm good. Whew, everything's kosher. Otherwise,
well, I think it blows my wife's mind is how I can like do it and then like just be normal.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
it's repetition though, man.
What's wrong with you? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like it was like
it's perfect.
A football play is 6 seconds of just like the most violent, like it's so violent, right? Like it's just like this crazy violence going on and like impacts everywhere and like all this shit going on, then you're like, you forget about it and you're on to the next one. And then it's like, you get like 20 seconds to recover, 25 seconds, like boom, do it again. And then just do that over and over again. That creates like this, it's like, you're almost like a machine robot at that, where you can like turn it on and off. The hard part is that whenever it's completely gone, like we talked about, what do I replace that with? Like, and to me, the closest thing to that is like bow hunting and being in the outdoors because I've been focusing a lot on like mental health lately because I had a really tough childhood, like a very traumatic childhood, a very a lot of trauma based around football as well, a lot of brain injuries, which you could probably relate to from playing in football and being around those explosions. Like, you could probably relate to that. But for me, I was like, man, like, we don't talk about this shit. Like, there's all these like initiatives like, oh, we got to talk about it. We got to do this. We got to tell our story, this and that. But like, nobody really talks about how they're feeling day to day.
Yeah, man.
Like, when I'm really struggling on a day, like, it makes me feel better to like let other people know that like, hey, I'm fucked up today.
Yeah.
But it's not gonna last forever. You know what I mean? It's not gonna be forever. It's just like a couple hours, maybe a day or two of like this like overwhelming anxiety and depression feeling. But what I think a lot of that is caused from when you're playing football or when you're in the military, when you have like this purpose driven thing that like it's in our DNA. We're wired as men. Yeah, man. As men, we're wired to conquer and to build and to have a goal and compete. Like, fight. All of those things are in our DNA. Yeah, it wasn't until like the last 50 years that this shit wasn't happening. Like 50 years, 1945 isn't very long ago.
Yeah.
Like, 1972 is not very long ago. Like, people are being drafted, just regular guys off the fucking street.
Yeah, man.
Coming out fresh out of high school, getting drafted.
Vietnam.
Straight and going to the jungle. Going through boot camp and then getting sent to the jungle. Like, that shit was not very long ago.
Yeah.
And now it's like everybody's so fucking comfortable.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody's so comfortable. Everybody's so quick to, like, we talked about, right? Everybody's so quick to sue somebody, right? Like, you're going to talk shit, get in my face, and then sue me
when I whoop
for
that
fucking
ass.
you up.
Exactly.
Like, it blows my mind. I had an issue. No, I can't talk about it actually, but I had an issue, not long ago where somebody was talking shit in my face, spitting on me as they talked to me. I gave him a chance to get away. He came back, and it's like, what the fuck do you expect me to do?
Yeah.
Like, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to just let this guy do this? Like, it's almost like, is it my job to teach him a lesson, right? Though, but it's like sometimes you have to be able to. I don't know, man. I just think some people just need their ass beat one time and they'll learn their lesson. Like, if they just get their ass kicked, it taught me a lesson.
Hell yeah. I agree with it.
I was like I was like 10 or 11 years old the first time I really got my ass beat by somebody else other than my stepdad, which was like not even close to me being a fight. He was 6'3", 280, he's a big ass dude. He just whipped my ass all the time. But for me, we're playing a football game and he ripped me down by my shirt. And that was like, we're playing shirts and skins. You're not supposed to be able to grab me by my shirt because that's the rule.
Yeah.
He did it anyways. So I jumped up and threw the ball at him and tackled him. And I went straight to him and just attacked.
Yeah.
Well, I ended up in a headlock and getting fucking punched in the face like 10 times. And then he was like, "You done?" I said, "Yeah, I'm done." Like, I'm all bloody. I'm fucking done,
Did you become good friends after that?
Yeah.
That's how they always...
Yeah, we became friends and he was a lot older than me. And he was like, I respect you for like even trying to fight back and like knowing when enough was enough, But nowadays, these kids will get in a fight, kid will lose, kid goes and gets a gun, kid comes and shoots him.
Exactly.
It's like, dude, you got your ass kicked. Like, just accept it and move on.
That's it.
That's just, we live in this, that's why, that's why these people want to take our guns away because of shit like that.
Bingo.
And it's like, there's a better way to solve problems.
Yeah, that's not the solution. Like with my two boys, they're always curious, Dad, tell us, what it was like when you were growing up. I'm like, well, in the 80s and 90s, that sort of thing. I'm like, we got in fights. You had a scrap with someone, you meet at the graveyard, you meet behind the school, you do these things, you fight somebody, typically became good friends after. It was like, there's an equality of kind of action. And like, you fought me, I fought you. You're like, you're not so bad. I'm glad we hashed this out. Those sort of things aren't even like promoted anymore. And I'm not saying you should like go out and fight people, but you should also be able to handle your shit. And the point where if you got a problem with someone, you need to be able to, address it and go through those necessary steps. And if the result is you got to scrap, then you got to scrap. But that's not how, people parent these days. And I think it's kind of wrong because we're going to wind up fostering this idea that everything can be won with words. Like, I hear the word conversation. We need to have conversations. Like, conversations are the first facet of that whole kind of spectrum. Action is what needs to happen off of those conversations. Conversations, exchange of information, methods of persuasion, as well as dictation, right? That's why conversation is, but it's the action that happens. So I've expressed to my boys, I'm like, if somebody is in your face and they're talking smack and you genuinely think, oh, this guy's going to throw down, I'm like, just throw the first punch.
Exactly.
They're both going to get suspended. Might as well beat the shit out of this guy.
Yeah, you might as well not get your fucking jaw broken.
It's pretty simple.
You know, I agree with that. You know, it's simple even with my girls, right? So like,
perfect example.
Like my daughter Roxy, right? We're at this little like splash pad thing, right?
Yeah.
Some little boy takes her little bucket. She comes over and she's like, Dad, somebody took my bucket. And I said, go take it back.
Go.
And she was like, but then I was like, no, go take it back. It'll be okay. And that was a moment for me that was like, okay, if I go take that bucket for her, like I'm doing her an injustice.
Bingo.
She goes over, takes the bucket, and the kid does nothing. And I'm like, she comes back over so happy that like, and so proud of herself. And I was like, see, I told you, you just go take it.
That's it.
Like I was like, that's your bucket. You had it first. He took it from you. Go take it back, you know? And and I teach that with even my oldest, you know, like to stand up for yourself.
Absolutely.
Like there's a difference between a bully and somebody just standing up for themselves, right? Like if somebody's talking shit and somebody's being aggressive, handle it, right? And I was always that way. I was that way from a young age. Like if I felt like shit was about to pop off, I made shit pop off.
Exactly.
Like well, let's pop it off then. Like I'm not going to be caught off guard.
I hear you, man.
You know, if you're going to if somebody's like walking towards me aggressively, like I'm fucking throwing the first punch.
Yeah. It's, I feel like that's how my parents, you know, I had 2 older sisters. So keep in mind, I can French braid. They used to do my hair and nails. Probably why I like to do a lot of manly things today, I guess I would say. But like, that was the rule in the house. Like you handle your business. If there's a fight, if there's something like that, whether it's on a football field or outside of the football field, you handle your business.
Yeah.
And that's the same sort of mentality I have with my kids. And recently, my youngest, he was kind of in this tiff with this kid. Not that he was looking to start or anything, but I was like, it's real simple. Like, you can have these conversations back and forth, but I can guarantee you in this day and age, all you have to do is walk up to that kid and be like, you want to do this? And that kid will back the fuck up.
Yeah.
Because 90%, they don't know what to do. They're afraid. They're this. There's all these different things. And he just did exactly that. Went up, said, hey, he was at a football game, like a high school football game. Like, those are the best places for fights, man.
Oh, that's what we
so many crowds are cheering, you just laying waste. But I'm like,
go behind the stands and get it on.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Go get that $2 hot dog, eat it, go in there fueled up, and then he went and handled his business, and it worked out. And it was all over a girl. And that was my second thing, was like, don't be scrapping over girls at the age of 14. It's not necessary.
It's not worth it.
It's not worth it. I'm like, just, you know, I know he likes her and you liked her, but I'm like, just don't go down that rabbit hole right now. I'm like, you know, my favorite part was when my 2 boys fight each other. Not that I'm like, all right, who's going to win? But like, we could be going to get, you know, school lunch meat, and one of them will put the other one in like a chokehold, and then we're in aisle 3 of Walmart, and they're like rolling around on the ground, and I'm like, all right, guys, get up. You know, I'm trying not to like do it, but I'm like, that's what boys need.
Boys need that.
They need to scrap. I mean, sitting a kid in a class for 8 hours and saying, don't move, pay attention. Like, boys are full of energy. I mean, everyone gets diagnosed with various things, but I'm like, I can guarantee you with kids, as long as you get them outside, get them to run around and like fall out of trees and scrape their knees and do these things, they're going to be okay.
They're going to be okay.
We turned out okay.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
For the most part.
And that's the other thing. We didn't have cell phones though.
Nothing,
you know
man.
what I mean? We didn't have video games and all this other shit that they have now, that, you know, social media. I can't even imagine what it's like to grow up as a teenager and having social media.
I couldn't imagine.
Fuck that.
No way.
I would never want it. Like
no way.
I remember the first, like I was like a senior in high school, I think, the first like cell phone with a camera on it, you know, that people could actually get.
Yeah.
And it was like a shitty camera. You know, it didn't take video, it was just like a quick picture, you know.
Yeah.
But like imagine if everything you did was on camera. Like,
That'd be bad news, man.
I
didn't do any social media or anything until 2017. I wanted nothing to do with it. I ran my businesses without it, and it was a great thing. But from like, I think if you're mature enough and you're old enough, it can be a valuable tool.
Oh yeah.
You know, just as far as networking, business promotion, all these different things. But I think with like kids these days, I do think they go to social media for a source of entertainment and then a source of, it sounds horrible to say, but like inspiration.
Yeah.
I feel like there's nothing in certain home kind of dynamics that can really inspire a kid to be like, you know what, do what you want to do. Like, I have a rule with my 2 boys, you guys cannot be me. Whatever you do in life, do not be me. Because if you're me, then you're not living to who you are.
Right.
So whatever it is that you want to do, you friggin' do it. And like, And if you change your mind 5 years down the road, awesome. But like, you cannot be me. And I think that's kind of given them an opportunity to be like, you know what? I like playing lacrosse. I like climbing. I love cooking. I want to go live overseas. I want to do this. And they can do it. And there's no judgment on my part. And I think a lot of kids, when they look for that entertainment or they look for social media, they're looking for that kind of like, who's willing to talk to me? Who's willing to listen to me? Is it a podcast that's I can resonate with and listen to the words of the hosts or the guests and say, you know what? I like what they're saying. I'm going to follow that line. He's a professional football player, retired early, gets to do the things that he loves, not because it was given to him, it's because he busted his ass from day one, the shitty situation in Ohio, all the way up until now. That sort of thing is what kids really look for, and where they're getting it is social media, because they're not getting it in those communities. Like where you grew up in a community, how I grew up in communities, you can kind of see the people you'd want to kind of gravitate towards. There was that kind of draw. And then there was the ones you're like, I want nothing to do with them. But those that you would gravitate towards, they had something. And I think that doesn't exist in a lot of forms today, except on social media. And that's their first way of really learning or getting exposure to it.
And it's not real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like most of the shit that they're watching it's bullshit. It's like there's nothing real. You know, they see even like they're like, oh, I wish I had a relationship like that. And it's like, that's not fucking real.
Yeah.
Like they're just showing you the good stuff.
Yeah, man.
Right? Like shit, like any relationship is difficult.
Absolutely.
You're going to fucking fight. You're going to argue. But it's like, you know, how far do you take it? Right? Like, you know, they don't show the realness. Right? And when you talk about looking up to somebody, like every time I walked into a new team or new locker room, I always found, like, especially as a young player, I always looked for like the veteran that was like doing it right.
Yeah.
You know, I never looked at the guy that was like having the most fun. Yeah. I always looked at the guy that was fucking doing it right. Yeah. Right. And that's the guy that I emulated. I'm like, I'm going to do it the way he does it because he's doing the shit right.
Yeah.
And that constantly evolves. Like, and now that I'm in this outdoor world, I'm doing the same shit.
Yeah.
I find the guys that do it the right way and that are doing it at a high level and that have respect in the industry.
Yeah.
And that's who I'm fucking doing it at. I'm following their footsteps because that's the way you're supposed to do it.
Bingo.
You know what I mean? And I think that, there's no loyalty anymore either, right?
Yeah.
So like, you know, the loyalty thing is like, you know, guys will jump ship, you know, in a second, you know, instead of just sticking it out.
Yeah.
You know, even with like, with different companies that I work with, right? It's like, yeah, they might not fucking be like paying me yet, but like eventually they will.
Yeah.
You know, and eventually, you know, to me, it's about the relationship there. Those relationships will cultivate and build. And that's the other thing with the cell phones. It has created this like sense of instant gratification. Yeah. There's no patience anymore. There's no willingness to like fucking grind it out. And, you know, I think Dana White said it best. You know, he's like, if you have like a killer instinct these days, you are going to run these motherfuckers over because nobody wants to work hard. Yeah. They want to work. They'll work hard for like a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they're like, see, at the first sign of failure, they will be like, see, I told you.
Yeah.
You know, I told you I wasn't going to do it. It's like they've already made up their mind that they're going to fail because they don't want to be surprised by failure. But like, man, if you don't fail, if you never fail in life, like if you never go through failure, right? Look at these like super rich trust fund kids. They're all fucked. Yeah. They are all so fucked up mentally because they don't know how to deal with any kind of adversity, right? Man. Like I learned at a young age what it felt like to go nights without food. I know what it's like to not know where you're sleeping the next day. I know what that feels like. Yeah. So like to me, like whatever happens in life, it's like, yeah, it might fucking suck, but I'll get through it. You know, like I know I can get through it. But these people, there's some people out there that never have felt that adversity. Yeah, any kind of adversity. Everything's easy for them.
And they're easy to sniff out.
Oh, you sniff them out.
You can see him a mile away and be like, look at this candy ass. I guarantee you I could just take everything off him. He'd do absolutely nothing.
Do nothing.
Like, here you go. And you're like, oh, man. You know, I think going back to that word ground truth, you have a ground truth in adversity from a very young age. And it has prepared you and conditioned you in certain actions today, which is, you can look at it in a lot of different ways, a lot of negative aspects of it, but you can't look at it and say, what's something I took away from it? I can handle some shit. I can handle, you know, discomfort. I can handle certain aspects of stress and how I go about dealing with it. And I think that's something that a lot of people can take away. Like, stress is part of life. There's no way of getting around it. Things will be stressors. For some folks, they don't encounter a real stress. They encounter a superficial one. Like somebody didn't like my post, or, you know, there's no value in it. You know what I mean? However, food, huge value. Sleeping safely at night, huge value. That's where you can draw from that kind of experience and really impact like a whole group of people. Like I'm not the biggest social media fan. There is a following there, but my points on social media is really just to expose people to a different opportunity.
Right.
I'm not asking them to buy anything or do anything in that regard. It's just like, this is something I do. If it's, sparks your curiosity, plenty of videos to watch. If not, move on. Like my best videos are the hunting videos where I get absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
I love them because it's real. It's like, look, I've been sitting out here for 5 days trying to shoot this, didn't get anything.
Yeah, we know how that feels.
Yeah.
But that's
you,
real.
That's authentic.
And it's relatable.
Exactly.
Because most people are hunting over the counter.
Yeah.
And they're not seeing shit.
No. Like that's the way it goes.
They're just not, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
man.
and yet we might be, even if you're seeing animals and you just aren't able to close the deal, right? Like that is so fucking relatable to me. I've had one of my best videos is like a Kansas whitetail that I did. It was like a 7 or 8 day hunt.
I saw that one.
And we could not kill shit. And then the last day, I hate sitting in blinds over like food, right? So I was like, all right, last fucking night, like let's just go ahead and sit in a fucking blind. So I'm in the blind, and my buddy Levi's in there with me, and he's filming. And we did an all day sit in there, and he kept farting, and it smelled like shit in there. And he thought it was hilarious, right?
Yeah.
And I just like little things. I didn't even think to like make sure I could draw my bow back in there. But like right at the end of the day, here comes a nice buck, and I'm like, all right, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
I go to draw my bow back, I can't draw it back.
Oh shit.
So I like finagle my way
Yeah.
into getting it to full draw, and my elbow is like pushing against the plastic as hard as it can.
Shit.
And I release the arrow, and my cam hits the top of the blind, and the arrow just like straight to the ground.
No shit.
And I just like, I look at him, and I'm like, I'm fucking beside myself right now. I don't even know what to say or what to do, but it's like, that is to me, like,
It's real.
That's real, you know? And I like this New Mexico hunt, right? We're hunting a limited draw unit.
Okay.
Unit 16A.
All right.
In the Gila, which is like Mecca for elk. Like
Gila's
you're
awesome.
gonna kill a giant there, like 350 minimum, you know?
Oh shit.
And like I never measure my animals, but like you know what a 350 inch bull,
sure.
380 inch bull, like you know how big that shit is. Well, we go 7 days, and we had one opportunity. We could have killed the one day we could have killed that bull, but it's hard to like.
Yeah, but he was a dink. He was only like 310. Like,
right. That's what I'm saying. Like he's a 310 inch bull. I'm like,
We'll let him go.
because I had already had eyes. I'd been hunting a 370. 380 bull. Like, I mean, he was a fucking giant. Like, I couldn't believe it. And I had him bedded at 150 yards. Wow. Right. So he's bedded at 150. Yeah. He's got, how many cows do you think, Lane?
there was at least 70. Like, that's being very conservative. 70, but I'm going to go probably closer to 120. There was just elk everywhere, dude.
They were everywhere. And he had other bulls in there. And there was like what, like a 330 bull, like a 350 bull.
Yeah, there was that freak that had just one big sword coming off, but 7 on the other side. Just
and they were
3 herds had collided, is what it was, and so they were screaming.
And they were having
like
a rut
crazy.
fest in there, and the big boy, he was just sitting there like watching it all, you know,
Just waiting for the winter.
And there was like other bulls would kind of get close to him, and they just stopped, terrified. Like remember that one bull stood there for like 10 minutes staring at him, like afraid to move because he didn't want to get beat up. But this bull's just laying there. And there was 3 cows up to the left that I just needed them to push forward. And they were doing it. They were doing everything we needed. The wind was blowing in my face.
Perfect.
I had cover to get up to them.
Yeah.
I was going to be able to, I could have got 20 yards from that thing if it wasn't for those cows.
Okay.
Well, I hear, brrr, I hear a fucking side-by-side. No. And I hear like a random bugle. And I'm like,
Oh god.
why the fuck is this guy bugling?
What?
I was like, is this a person? And then I just forgot about it, right? Like, like 30 minutes goes by and I just forget about it. And I kept saying, I need to go. And we're like, nah, just wait. Like, let's just wait. Let's be patient. It's like, all right, let's do it right. Well, they get up and they fucking start. It's just like chaos, right? And they all leave.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck? Pull my binos up. Here comes some guy walking with the wind to his back. He's walking with the wind into a herd of elk with an arrow knocked. And he's like looking around like, where the fuck the elk go?
No.
Dude, Lane had to talk me out of going and having a conversation with this guy. Because if he would have just came...
I don't think those were the exact words you were using you were going to go do.
Yeah.
fuck this dude up.
I was like, I'm gonna go have
That's closer.
conversation with this asshole.
Jesus.
Because honestly, like if he would have done the right thing, which is get the wind right, he would have came around and we would have been able to have a conversation right there.
Yeah.
And been like, look, dude, let's go in there. There's a ton of bulls worth shooting. There's like 4 bulls in there worth shooting.
Yeah.
Let's go in there and like I don't care if I shoot the biggest one.
Yeah.
Like any of those bulls are worth shooting. Like I was happy to take any of them, even the crazy freak bull. He had 7 on one side.
God damn.
Just some weird blade coming out. Like
That's pretty awesome.
you know, it was but instead he goes and blows it up. He had to have been glassing those bulls.
Yeah.
And seen me and decided I'm going to go fuck it up so that he, you know, if anybody's going to kill a bull, it's going to be me. Like because Lane, did he not turn back and smirk at me?
Oh, yes, he did. He turned back and he was like,
I was like, dude,
that's not.
you're a fucking asshole.
Man.
Like you're a prick, you know?
You got some composure, man.
Well, if it wasn't for these guys talking to me and him and Braxton, my guide, he was like, dude, it's not worth it. And I was like, fuck this guy. This guy's an asshole, you know?
Oh, man.
But, you know, it's that shit like that you know, we did everything right. And then some guy just comes out of nowhere and fucks it up, you know? And it's like,
man.
But that's relatable.
Yeah.
Because how many times are guys, you know, my first elk hunt ever out of retirement, we go to Unit 18
Okay.
up in Kremling.
Yeah.
Or like Grand Lake area. And we go.
Granby.
Yeah, up in Granby. So we go up there and we wake up in the morning. We heard a bugle at night, like way up there.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, fucking let's get up at 3 a.m. and let's bust ass up there and get them. Because I saw, you know, with the mapping systems now, you can see what the fuck's up there. And I was like, it looks like there's water up there.
Bingo.
So let's go. So we hauled ass. It was like 2,000 vertical feet. Just hauled ass up there.
That's a good time.
And we get up there and they're not talking. But I'm like, there's a saddle right here.
Okay.
And that's a north-facing slope over there. They're bedded right over here. They're going to come over tonight. Like, let's just hang out up here.
Yeah.
They're going to come back over. That wallow smelled so fucking nasty. Like, it was like, I was like, they were just here. So, like, they're going to come back. And it's a huge meadow. And I was like, this is perfect, you know?
Yeah.
So we hear a bugle. And I'm like, oh, shit, it's on. So we're calling. Like an hour goes by, and I'm like, this bull should have made it here by now.
Yeah.
And I pull my binos up, and there's some guy standing on the other end. So it's like, that's relatable, though.
Yeah.
How many times do guys call in some other guy when they're elk hunting, you know? Because it's like,
You hear him and you're like, is that human? Or
it was
is
a
that
great bugle. He sounded
Yeah.
great. But then I was like, please don't. Oh, yeah. Go ahead and play this. Here's the bull. See him?
Okay, yeah.
See him right here?
Yeah.
Look how big that fucker is. Bedded right here to the left.
God damn, look at that. Yeah, right in the draw.
Right there.
Yep.
He's looking the other way.
yeah, the freak's just right over here, off to the right.
And see the bull staring at him? That little one? He's like, oh, fuck. I mean, we were less than 150. We were like 100 yards.
Well, this was before we got closer.
Yeah, man. And they just blew out of there. But look at I had great cover all the way to the left here. I was going to be able to sneak up to the left here, and I was going to get him to stand up.
Yep.
I'll just whistle at him and get him to stand up and look and smoke him. But he's huge, dude. He's a huge bull. Because that one that's looking at him, that's like a 280, 300-inch bull.
God damn. So that boy in that shadow right there.
Yeah. Huge.
But I mean, that's
elk hunting.
That's
though.
elk hunting, though, man. I tell people I'd rather hunt 100 days and not kill anything, but at least I get 100 days out in the bush, roaming around, learning, doing everything. It's part of it. Like I always start every elk season with marmot, whistle pigs. It starts August 10th, way up in high elevations. It gets your mind right, gets your body right. More importantly, marmot is like the thoracic cavity. It's the perfect size. You're hunting along scree fields, super exposed. It is hard, but it kind of gets me in that mindset, and it's a great transition into, you know, all the other hunts. But I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I've gone hunting and have come back empty-handed. Given, you know, I always say, well, you're hunting with a primitive bow, or it's like, you know what, maybe you just stepped into a wind column and it picked up your scent and blew it out, and that caused them to take off. There's a lot of factors and variables in there, but I'm very judgmental of myself when it comes to hunting and like how I like to go about, you know, approaching various types of game. But not always getting something is 100%. Like there's there's so many hunters that like you only see the glory, you never see any of the other stuff.
Well, a lot of this stuff is stolen valor that you're seeing too. Yeah, it's not even real.
You're right.
You know, like it's not even real. Like
high fence released an hour before.
Yeah, like
dehydrated animals, sedated animals.
Sedated.
I've heard it, man. I've heard it. I definitely.
Because it's hard. It is hard as fuck to get. First of all, you got to have a camera guy that's capable of putting their body like Lane and Levi are the only two guys that I trust out there with me because like I don't. People could say what they want, but I do hunt hard. Do I not? Like I fucking.
It's good stuff.
Even Lane looked at me like I was crazy the one day. I thought I could. For something in my head, so I could beat that bull to the fucking water hole 2 miles away.
I was so mad.
He was pissed. He was like,
I was like, "There's no way we're gonna beat elk."
He didn't say anything. He didn't say a word, and I was like, "We can beat him, right?" And he's like, "I don't know, maybe." And I was like,
no, maybe never came out of my head.
He just
Braxton said maybe. I'm the one that was like, "There's no fucking way."
He's like, "I don't think so, man." And I was like, "Well, fuck it, let's do it." You know, because to me, to like at that point, it was like we're like day 5, right? I was like, the only way we're gonna get a bull killed is if we do something that nobody else is willing to do. Yeah. And nobody else is willing to bomb this fucking hill knowing that they have to come back out of there. And it is straight down. Yeah. 2 miles, like, and we get down there and the bull had already been there and left.
Terrain plays though, man. That's a huge factor. So many people not willing to, like, well, I know they're sitting over. I got to hit this saddle, drop down. And I'm like, for me, that's not, I'm all about, I'd rather get up there and see that they've moved or they've done something where now I have to adjust because it's always learning. And I just like being outside, wearing a loincloth in moccasins with a bow. You know, I've come across hunters and a couple OTC tags along the front side, kind of like, I guess it's 51, 52. And it's just a real easy access point. But I've been out there enough where I know there's plenty of elk out there. And I've been walking this trail, slept in a pile of leaves the night before just to kind of get that ground scent. And I pop up out of this trail, and then there's 2 guys over there with their bows drinking Starbucks coffee. And I know where they parked. They took this road in. I came in from the other side. And then they kind of look at you look at them, and I'm like, well, I guess today's done. You know what I mean? Because as they're drinking hazelnut coffee and chit-chatting away, I'm like, all right, this is smoked. So I learned from those experiences. I learned from all the shots that, that you can't take because you're like, man, I wish it was like 8 feet closer. And there's one little branch that if it would the wind would blow it, pick it up, and then I could take a shot.
Yeah.
But that's what I love about it, man. There's so many opportunities where you can be like, all right, what did I learn from this? What can I take away from it? Am I hungry? Yeah, absolutely. I'll go, shoot a rabbit or a squirrel or something. But like, it's all about that experience.
Well, you fail so much more than you succeed in hunting, And it was the same way with pass rushing, you failed almost, 90% of the time. It's like if I could be 10% successful, that's pretty damn good.
That's good.
So it's like, and that's just like getting a quarterback down. Like, yeah, I'm affecting the play, even though I didn't get a sack, but like to get a quarterback with the ball in his hands on the ground and not get a penalty, especially these days, is not easy. So like, I played 10 years. I had 36 regular season sacks.
That's awesome.
And I was in on most third downs.
That's awesome.
Von Miller and I, that's, in 8 years, we had 136 together, regular season sacks. So it's like, but we were in on thousands of pass plays. Yeah. So like, we were probably only like 10, 12% success.
Yeah.
Which is still damn good.
Yeah, yeah.
So that just shows, and a lot of these archery units are like 8, 10%, like 10%, like that makes you like, as an archery hunter, you're like, well, that's not bad.
Yeah. I'll take those odds.
Because that other place is like 2, it's like, so it's like, even like the whole state of New Mexico is like 8% success with a bow.
Yeah.
And it's loaded.
It's got a lot. I know on my property alone, between those 2 reservations, and then there's this, the Ice Cave area, the Ice Cave Creek. And it's like this old volcanic area, but like there's nothing but elk all in that area. And like I've got just a perfect little spot, but it just comes down to really time at certain points. I can get down there and hunt it, but if things aren't lining up and I know there's no elk rolling through, I'm like, well, I guess I'll just eat snakes and rats, which is okay, but I enjoy hunting, and I don't hunt with a lot of people because I think there's there's an approach of mine that I like to kind of go for. You know, I've hunted with, you know, my neighbor Dano, who's retired cop. I mean, we've gone after hogs and ducks and various things like that. Very, very similar mindset. But sometimes when it comes to like an elk camp, there is no elk camp for me. Like I would like to at some point, but then I know my task is not necessarily to hunt. It would maybe to help guide or do various things. But like, I like going out with very minimalistic stuff, you know, finding a shelter, building something, staying in it, and then hunting in that area. That experience and the overall is hunting to me. And then the reward in the end is when you get to, you know, bring home some meat, so to speak. But there's been times where, you know, I'm out and about and there's been opportunities, and I always have a give back. That's kind of like one of my rules for hunting is like, I can see something and I know it's within limits. It's great, the whole 9 yards, but I'm like, all right, that one's my give back. That's me giving back. I'm going to take the next one that comes around. It's whether it's a fish.
It's being selective.
It's being selective.
People call it trophy hunting, and I call it selective hunting.
Yeah.
It's because what good is it for the herd if I take a young bull?
Yeah.
Right? Or if I kill a calf or something, like it doesn't do anything for the herd.
Yeah.
Like it actually hurts the herd. So I'm like, to me, I love these animals, right? Like I have a true respect and love for these animals. So like, you know, I grew up where whitetail run rampant.
Yeah.
You know, and you know how it is in Maryland with whitetail.
Oh my God.
So like you had to, they're nonstop. Shit. You have to.
Yeah.
Because if not, they're like rats everywhere.
Yeah, man.
So, but like with elk, we might have these huge herds of elk. But still, like you don't want to go. You want to take the oldest, most mature animal that you possibly can, because that's what's best for the herd.
Yeah,
you know, because now another bull can step into that role. But if you
DNA.
take a young one out, like it's like,
it's
didn't do any good. You know,
I think if hunters actually thought about the second and third order effects of what they choose to take, and what's the reasons behind it, like how can this help the herd? How can it help that overall, you know, ecological system? And they think about it, then they're going to really do some great, some not damage, but some significance in rehabilitating and, more importantly, like fostering the growth of that environment. And I think, you know, whether you're hunting bear or you're hunting turkey, all of those things hold an impact in certain ways. And for me, it's my pursuits in hunting is always about resources. I always kind of have like these 3 golden rules, like honor the hunt, about the resource, and then it's our blood origin. Blood origin in the sense of like, we're all hunters from the dawn of time. More importantly, the origins of everyone's personal hunting experience maybe stems from a grandfather or a father or a mother. You know, your grandmother cooking the perfect venison stew on Sunday, or your grandfather smoking Marlboro Reds wearing a red checkered shirt hunting. Those are all your personal kind of blood origins into why you hunt. Honoring the hunt is an ethical quick kill. It is giving fair chase. It is being selective in kind of a conservation sort of standpoint. Like, you honor the hunt by putting in the work. Like, I've guided a few hunts, and after one hunt that I guided, I will never do it again, because I felt the guy that I was guiding, who paid very, very nice and very, very well, but I just felt
he was in it for the wrong.
He was in it for the wrong reasons, man. He drew a lifetime tag down by Lake Powell in Utah, and I'd spent a shit ton of time walking those canyons and areas and tons of desert bighorn. So he contacted me because I had posted some online, and he's like, "Hey, would you mind helping me out? I just pulled a lifetime. Let's get out there." And I was like, "Yeah." So I went out, scouted stuff, and I'm tracking mountain holly distributions at different elevations, because that's what they like to eat. Water flows, just like I'm nerding out, and I love doing that stuff. Like, kind of brings you to a place of like, all right, I'm out here. Let's see if we can like lay it all out.
Be the sheep.
Exactly. Where am I at? So I'm glassing, I'm doing all these things, and I found a couple nice little populations of them. Sending him some photos, and he's like, "Great, meet me on the other side of the lake." I guess it was like Saturday or whatever, and I was like, "All right." So I meet him on the other side of the lake. He rolls up, and he's got a boat. He shoots across the water, to maybe like a 10-minute ride, and where I had been dropping him pins is where I was seeing all these herds, and he's like, "Yeah, let's go for this one," because it was a straight shot right across. We walk out maybe 20 yards. I'm like, "All right, get down." There's probably, a bunch of them sitting over here. He pops his head up and he goes, "That one will do." Shoots it. And I was like, as soon as he like shot that round, I was like, what the fuck was this? Like, I put in all the work doing all this stuff, preparing understanding growth patterns of what they're eating, where the water is, where they're bedding, all this sort of stuff. This guy just used everything that I had, came out here, shot his thing. Then I wound up butchering it out, doing the whole 9 yards, and got back in the boat. It was probably a 45-minute sort of one and done. And I was like, I will never do this again.
Well, look at these GovTag guys. These guys that pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for GovTags just to step out of the truck, shoot an animal, get back in the truck, and go home and take a picture with it and show their buddies.
Yeah, look what I got.
Oh, I got this. I got 3 sheep slams. I'm like, cool. Like,
oh man,
you know, did you? Who found the sheep for you?
Yeah.
Who found the 260-inch mule deer that you killed? You know, it's somebody. These guys, and those are the guys I got a ton of respect for.
Absolutely,
Are the guys that are out there sleeping on these sheep,
scouting
sleeping on them for 30 days.
Yes. And I get it. That's
in rocks.
Yeah, that fuels the economy. It feeds their families. And I think if more hunters ever going down that kind of like, here's my menu, I'll take, you know, a kudu on this ranch in Texas at this price. I just wish there was a little bit more of an honor to it, because there's been like so much time since the dawn of time. Guys have like, you know, gone with spears and simple weapons and stood against beasts. And said, we need to kill this.
Well, you think about like Ice Age, right?
That's what I mean, man. It's beautiful.
These guys had to, like, we walk around and it's like, it's kind of sketchy with these mountain lions walking around, especially that one I killed.
Yeah.
I was like, this thing is huge. Couldn't believe. I was like, he could carry me up a tree.
Yeah, buddy.
Like, there's not a lot of animals where, like, you know, black bears, they don't really scare me. You know, grizzlies make me a little nervous. But this mountain lion was the first time that I put my hands on something. Was like, this thing could, like,
You die.
you know, that, and like gators too. Gators
yeah.
are like, but they're scared. Gators are usually scared of you. If you like, you know, if you make noise, they'll get the hell out of there. And just stay out of the water if you know there's gators in there. You know, like, I'm not getting in the water with them.
Yeah, I've been with some gators before. I built a raft out of pine reeds and then had an atlatl and was going after gar with a homemade paddle, and there's nothing but gators popping up. As soon as you get close, they kind of drop down.
Yeah, they drop down.
They're not into you, but
yeah, we put the sneak on the one that I just killed down in Florida. It was pretty cool.
Right on.
And I wanted to do it with my bow, but the guy was like, I don't know, man. He's like, I don't want to see you wound one, and, you know, this and that. And I was like, I'm a pretty good shot.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to wound him. He's like, dude, I'm telling you, these gators are wild. Like, they're not like farmed gators. As soon as you, like, you're too big to be sneaking up on a gator. Like, all they have up is their eyes. You know? And they're like, he has to be, and they got to be at the right angle and everything.
Just try to put it like right behind that like jaw, well, the extended portion of the jaw and that soft like belly pocket.
Right. Yeah. And he was like, you know, a good chance, like, as soon as your bowstring snaps, he's gonna pop back down, you know. And he's like, I was like, all right. So, but I did get where I was. I wish I had my bow with me, because where I was at, where I ended up getting on this thing, I could have definitely used my bow. But it still was really cool. Like, I prefer to hunt with a bow, because I think there's something unnatural about the bang of a gun to me. Like, when I'm hunting. There's something unnatural about it, and there's something primitive about the snap of a bowstring, you know, and to hear like the lungs pop from an arrow, like, because you're that close, you know, like, you don't hear anything when you shoot the gun, like, you just
did I get it? Hold on.
And I got nothing against like guys that only like I like rifle hunting for certain animals, like, I'm into it, right? If it's like, okay, I didn't get one with a bow, like, I got a chance to go with a rifle now, right? I'm cool with that. And I have nothing against that. Same with like archery. If a guy wants to use a damn crossbow, whatever, you know, go ahead. And that's where I think that there's like a division in this industry, is where there's guys that hunt primitive, and there's guys that hunt like sort of primitive, and then there's guys that hunt with like the best technology you can possibly use, and then there's the guys that go above and beyond that with their rifles, you know. And it's like, you have a $10,000 rifle, you know, and it's like, because to me, I think that muzzleloader hunting is cool.
Yeah, I think that's pretty
like
cool.
They're doing open sights now with that, like that
Black powder
hunters, like that's pretty cool. Like, you know, and you only get one shot, and you know,
and when you shoot, you lose. You know what I mean? Like, because you get the burn.
Yeah,
and you're like, I better stay on.
Yeah, and I remember growing up, you know, like these old timers. Like, I was with my buddy's grandpa, and he was shooting a doe out in the middle of this field, and boom! And I was like, holy shit. I'm like waiting for the gun to go off. And I was like, you know, so like, to me, that's really cool, you know, and that's to me, that's pretty primitive still.
Yeah.
You know, but but guys that go out with like the way you hunt to me is like, I have such my respect level for you is like so high.
Appreciate it, man.
You know, because in the way that you don't like judge people for the way that they hunt too, you know, and I think that's where there's like this division where, you know, we have to come to this reality where there are groups with hundreds of millions of dollars backing them and lobbying. And look at Colorado, Governor Polis, his husband is an animal rights activist.
Yep.
So there's a lot of policies that Polis has that I think are great, but if his husband would have it the way he wants it, we would not hunt.
Yeah.
And they're trying to do it with the mountain lions, right? If there's no mountain lion hunting and there's no population control on them, then guess what? The elk herd is going to get hammered. The deer herd is going to get hammered. The sheep herd is going to get hammered. Every animal in this state there will be no game left. And that's where we have to come together as hunters and outdoorsmen, and we're going to be fighting for a common goal here and come together.
Yeah.
You know, I'll be actually I think it's December. When is Steve coming? December. It's in December. Yeah, Steve's coming in December, and him and I are going to go up there, and Robbie from Blood Origin is going to.
Right on.
I'm going to work with him to get like all the facts down because he does a great job with the conservation side of stuff of getting the true knowledge out there. I'm going to work with all the data points because that's what people want to hear. Like they want to hear the data points. So I'm going to get all of that information so I don't go in, and I'm going to get up in front of people here in Colorado with Steve, and we're going to talk about it. And we're going to bring awareness to it because it's important.
Hell yeah.
Because if you take away hunters, if you take away hunting, that is an attack on warriors.
Yeah.
Because if you take away the warriors, then you have full control.
Yeah. Very true.
Full control of the sheep.
Very true.
You don't want the sheep to be walking around able to fight, you know?
Yeah.
And able to feed themselves and protect themselves. You want them totally reliant on you as in the government.
Yeah.
So that you can have total control.
Yeah, man, that's a good analogy.
And I think that's truly what's happening here is the government wants more control. They're going to do what they can to take away more and more ability to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Because I love going into my freezer, and every meal that I eat damn near is something I killed.
Yep.
Something that I harvested. I went out, I hunted, I put in the work. So it means something every time I take a bite, you know?
Hell yeah.
And going to the grocery store and just grabbing some bullshit off the shelf that has you pumped full of hormones and antibiotics and all that other bullshit. And, you know, who knows what we can go down the rabbit hole here with all the conspiracies.
It's truth.
You know, like I'm crazy about drinking city water. Like I think that they're pumping it full of Prozac and shit, you know? So I think that they're doing everything they can to keep us dumb and lazy.
I think there's truth to that.
I think we just got to stick together, man. Like if we can stick together and fight for the common good. And that's why I get so angry when I hear about a guy poaching or a guy, doing things the wrong way or, over hunting things like shit like that. Cause now you're giving us a bad name. You know, you're
fueling their fire.
You're fueling their fire.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of people were like, well, you fueled the fire by posting that picture of that mountain lion. I was like, no, I didn't. I said, all I did was bring awareness to the fact that, like, hey, there are giant lions out here in abundance.
Yeah.
So we better control that population or they're going to control the elk population.
Yeah, man.
And elk and deer, I love to hunt elk and deer. And I love, like, to me, Rocky Mountain Bighorn is like the pinnacle. And, I just refuse to pay that much for a tag. So I'll just hopefully I draw it before I'm,
get the
dead.
lifetime. Yeah. No, I think when it comes to hunting, I think all those that hunt, there is kind of common goals, kind of common approaches in certain ways. Everybody can hunt with whatever they so choose. That's up to them. And I'm not going to judge. That's not, it's not my place. Nor is it like a motivation of mine to be like, oh, this guy uses a rifle or this. Everyone has their reasons. They're hunting. They're doing a lot of good. I fear if these things kind of come into place, there's a lot of people, the small mom and pop shots, the restaurants, the archery stores, all these little independent companies are going to take a huge hit because
the guides.
Yeah, the guides, the taxidermists, the butcher, you name it. Those people are going to really they're going to see the downside of that, and it's really going to impact them. I don't want this place to wind up turning into California.
Yep.
That's like a huge fear of mine. And I think as more people come in certain, walks of life, they kind of think a certain way. But I personally not hope, but there needs to be something where on a global scale or even in the U.S. that reminds people of what we should be doing and what we're capable of doing, and more importantly, how we can take care of our own individual families and our communities. Like, we shouldn't be so reliant on, Big Brother to say, this is what you can do, this is how you go about doing it. Like, I don't need that. I don't want that. And I think if we continue to let that sort of stuff happen, it's going to go down a really bad place. Really,
yeah.
There's going to be people probably like, the three of us in here that won't put up for it. We'll stand ground and be like, you can try, but you're not going to be successful. This is how I feed my kids meat. Like, there's no other options. Whatever's in the crock pot, that's what they're eating. They've grown up eating it. I could give them a steak. They would eat it and be like, what is this? This tastes different. And I'm like, well, take a guess. And they're like, elk, venison, bison, pronghorn. They'll like, it's none of those. And they're like, what is it? I'm like, it's just a regular steak. They're like, oh, I mean, they'll still eat it, but they know that difference. And I think,
oh yeah, there's a huge difference.
it's huge.
When I go eat a big fatty, beef steak from the store, like, it tears me up.
Yeah.
My stomach is tore up.
Yeah, man. But I think honestly, hunting is probably one of the smartest things to really control a population of animals, as well as really put money into the hands of the, different science and research into these sustainable populations, as well as being able to foster growth and economy, and then keeping to the traditions of the warrior, the hunter, who we are, and our truest blood origin. I think we got to maintain those things, and if we don't, we're going to wind up being like some of these other states, and
or some of these countries, that are so vulnerable.
Man,
so vulnerable to attack.
Yeah, I hear you.
Like, that's like, there's a reason why people don't come to this soil.
Yeah, we're armed,
right? They know,
and there's a lot of veterans and folks out there that are like, we don't give a shit who you are. You start paragliding in here,
you're getting picked off.
Done.
I mean, guys were trying to fly drones around and they was getting shot down.
Yeah.
It's like, that's just that's America.
Yeah.
Like and other countries would be like, oh, America, huh? Guns, this. They always talk about guns. Mm-hmm. It's like, you're mad because you can't protect yourself.
Yeah. You gave yours up.
You guys gave up your right to protect yourself.
Yeah.
So like, now you are totally reliant on somebody coming to save you.
Yeah.
Nobody's coming to save you.
Zero.
Nobody's coming to save you. Yeah, if we learned anything, over these last couple of years, even,
I saw it firsthand in Iraq. First thing we did was remove all their weapons.
Yeah.
You guys aren't allowed to have firearms unless you are authorized police, law enforcement, military. That's it. And then it's like, next thing you know, you get some guy who's like, look, I live in the outskirts of town. I'm just trying to protect my family. He's got an AK. You're like, well, shit, man, if I really take this away from him, he's going to be in trouble, So I've seen it, and I know it's not a good thing, and there's no way in hell that's ever going to happen on my watch.
No chance.
Nah.
There's too many of us here. Yeah. That are like not going to.
There's a lot of us.
That shit is not going to fly.
There's a lot more than what the government and what the other groups want you to think about, too.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just because people aren't talking about it, the smart people are the ones that are just, keep my head down.
Well, mainstream media controls the narrative, So,
always,
they're never going to.
Yeah, I've quickly learned years and years ago where whatever they tell you is what they want to tell you. Like, none of it's. I remember when news used to be news, entertainment, weather, and sports. That was it. That was like, you could show up, you could get some info, and be like, great, this is awesome. Now it's, I don't give a shit what this person is wearing or how this person's song. I don't care. Like, all I really want to know is, keep it the facts. Joe Friday, just the facts, ma'am. And you can't get anything in any sort of landscape that is truth. However, the cure to that is this. Podcasts, independent people that aren't tied to, dollars, to say, well, let's sit down, we'll chat, we'll talk about some things, we'll do some things, we'll bring awareness. That is the new form of information. That's how I get my info. There's people on social media that I follow for no particular reason aside from they just give me simple facts. Like, there's this one gal, she gives you 5 underreported stories you need to know for the day. And I'm like, perfect. She just reads it, 3 or 4 facts, non-biased. I'm like, perfect. That's all I really need.
Perfect.
I don't need anything else. I don't care what this person's wearing or whatnot. Keep it simple.
Well, I think that people are too quick to sell their soul.
Yeah.
For the sake of money.
Yeah.
And I was like totally, that was the thing in the NFL. I wouldn't play the game. Yeah. Right. I would not play the bullshit game inside the game. I wouldn't get vaccinated. I wouldn't submit to their bullshit rules with COVID, I didn't care.
Yeah.
I was like, you're not going to tell me what I can and can't do. Mm-hmm. You're not going to tell me that I have to get a shot to play football because it's bullshit.
Yeah, man.
I was, and they didn't like that. They didn't like that I wouldn't kneel.
Yeah.
I wouldn't bend the knee.
That's why you're a leader, though.
Right.
That's the difference. You lead by example. That's what that is. You're like, look, I'm still successful. I didn't bite off on your bullshit. I'm leading by example. Those who choose to follow. Right on. I'll help you get there. But if you don't, go ahead. Join the rest. Be the masses that choose not to. That's where it's hard for folks is true leadership, leading by example, not doing what I'm telling you to do, but follow my actions. My actions are my proof of my heart, my spirit for the most portion. And that's what a lot of people need these days is they need that leadership by example. That's like a military thing. Like you lead by example in no other way. And that is, you are essentially doing that.
Yeah.
This is an information source. When I listen to the podcast or listen to anybody else's podcast, I'm like, what information am I getting? I mean, do I give a shit about this, that, or the other? No. What is the information that I'm getting? What can I learn from it? Information.
There's a difference between opinion and fact.
Exactly.
And I think that too many people they've put a lot of weight on somebody else's opinion.
Yeah, man.
And it's like, no, here's the fucking truth.
Yeah.
There's like the truth is right in front of you.
Yeah.
But because somebody else is telling you their opinion, you won't believe the truth.
Yeah.
So it's like how fucking blind do you have to be, And it just comes down. I always say it, man. Like they're fucking sheep.
Yeah.
Most people are sheep.
Sheeple.
Like they will fucking follow. They will follow the coolest, most trendy thing, right? What is trendy? Oh, it's trendy. It's like these pro-Palestinian groups right now. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, we're talking about, like, we're going to have an argument over how a baby was killed.
Yeah.
Not the fact that a baby was killed.
Let's not kill people.
Let's just not fucking do it, right? Like, how about we just don't do that, right?
Yeah.
How about we fucking stop that and fight and protest that?
People are dumb, man.
But, people are like, and the funny part is that most of these people that are pro-Palestinian, if they went to Palestine, they'd be fucking done.
Yeah, man. Those organizations do not mess around. I mean, one of my most unique training experiences in the military was a mirror image program. And mirror image is basically you go and live as a terrorist for like a month, 2 months, 3 months. Build bombs, you do assassinations, kidnappings, drive-bys, you name it, black market deals. And who we were going against was federal marshals. So for an entire 2 months, I prayed 5 times a day, only spoke when spoken to, and I was part of a terrorist cell in this training thing. Because you need to know how your enemy thinks. So the easiest way is to be the mirror image and live as them. And it doesn't matter if it's 1 or 100 people that they kill, it's the message that they send.
Yeah.
It is
fear.
That's it. And it's so easy when I see these protests and these people being, pro this and pro that. I'm like, you guys have no idea. Zero idea. Zero ground truth onto what these folks would do to you if they got you in their grasp.
Yeah.
Zero.
Cut your fucking head off.
Easily.
And then film it.
Film it 100 times. And then
send it to your fucking dad.
Bingo.
Or your mom.
Bingo, man.
That's what they'll do. That's the shit that they do because they want to inflict as much fear as possible. I heard it was a guy that took the phone of somebody he just killed and was bragging to his parents about how many people he had just killed. And his parents were like, "Oh, I hope you make it home safe. Like, I'm so proud of you." It's like, what? Like you don't realize what the fuck these people have been bred into.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are completely, they believe that they're going to the kingdom of paradise.
Yeah.
If they murder people and then go out with their sword in hand. Like that's what they believe.
It's a weird kind of dynamic because you have different ways. You have Sunni, you have Shia when you come to, these various extremist groups. And it's all pretty much on how they follow the Quran, right? So they have certain texts in the Quran based off of what kind of, thought process you're following, and it dictates what you do in order. So the first surah always supersedes the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. And one of them, it is thou shalt, engage in jihad. It is part of their path. And it is the only thing that they have when you really think about it. If you have no school, you have no education, but the one thing you do have is a form of influence in the form of a creed or an edict on behalf of an elder, a religious person that is giving you these things, you don't have another reason to believe anything else. It just is. And if this life that you are living now and that sort of way of following isn't the eternal life, then it's like, well, then how do I get to the eternal life? It's very easy to say, well, put a bomb on my chest, put me in a hang glider. I'll go do it because I know what's coming next is a billion times better. So, I mean, if you take a person that isn't really into critical thinking and how they approach life and the diversity of everything that goes around, it's very easy to convince that person to say, hey, look, I need you to strap this on the chest, walk into that crowd and detonate yourself because where you're going next is the best. And to be like, you know, like in the female version, to be a shaheed is to be a female martyr. There's nothing more honorable than that. And for a male to be able to do the same thing, there's nothing more honorable than that. So, you know, I fault them in their actions, but I also understand in a different capacity why they're doing those things. Like in their mind, it's the right thing to do. However, in my mind, I will stop your rightful way of thinking with whatever means that I have capable, you know?
Right. You know, it's, you know, this can go to I watched this documentary. It was called Ordinary Men.
Okay.
And it's about the ordinary men that were assigned to these police forces, the Nazi Germany police forces that, the kill squads.
Okay.
And these guys were just ordinary guys who were convinced that they were doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Like they had been completely brainwashed into thinking that all of their troubles and problems were because of someone else. Mm-hmm. Right. And they've picked a target group and that's how they brought them all together, you know. And then if somebody wasn't like down for the cause, they got, you know, if they wouldn't go on it, because they were just rounding Jews up, taking them out in the woods and shooting them. And then throwing them in a ditch. And there was people that survived that.
Yeah.
You know, they survived being tossed in a ditch. They left and they climbed out and made it out of there.
Yeah.
And they're telling these stories about like how it went down. And, you know, these other Germans that were like, look, if we didn't do what we were told, we were basically segregated from everybody else. Like they just, you know, you're just a traitor basically. Mm-hmm. You know, and it was like, wow, you know, think about that. That's not very long ago.
No, man.
You know, that's not that long ago. And that's like, you're talking, what was it, 6 million?
Yeah, 6 million Jews. Yep.
6 million Jews. Like,
it's...
Talk about it. And then like Rwanda wasn't very long ago either.
No, man, there's...
1994.
1994.
There's so much genocide and various things happening that... It sounds really horrible, and I hope no one judges me, but... One of the things I remember saying to myself when I was overseas fighting in a war, where was America? America was at the mall. I hate saying it, but it was very true because at a certain point, it's great, it's grand, it's wonderful. Do it. Yeah, do it. And then everyone just kind of falls to this other way of thinking of, well, it's not my concern. And sometimes folks have the ability to be like, well, it's not happening to me directly, so it's not my biggest concern. Now it seems like it's not happening to them directly, but like everyone wants to provide their input or this is how it should be, or this is what it should be based off of, you know, certain political views. And you can keep that shit to the side. But the reality is when bodies start stacking up, actions will need to be taken. And it's like, who's going to take it, you know? And it's a certain population of people in the States are going to be like, you're going to have to come hard. You're going to have to come fast to try and take what we have. There's other populations be like, well, we'll get behind those that are coming to try and take it because we know that they're in charge. They might have this certain level of persuasion, like, it's not the case, you know, like Germany, and then there was Nazi Germany, you know, two different factions, but they're all kind of grouped together. We're all going to be grouped together at some point. Mm-hmm. Me, I will lead a small resistance up in the mountains. It'll be just like Red Dawn, Wolverines. It's going to be great.
I'll be there.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's invited. Everyone needs a ticket. You know what I mean? I've already got my boys with our E&E routes. Like when COVID kicked off, we were ready to go. Like my buddy Phil, who's a SEAL down in Monument, he was like, look, here's the scenario. You move from your house. He's got all sorts of weapons. And like, we just had this whole game plan. It didn't happen. We were kind of bummed, but we were ready to go. Like we met up at his house and like literally we had like briefs and be like, all right, on day 2 of COVID, day 1, you know, we were just going into it. But that's where it could go. People don't realize that.
Oh, they don't realize how quick.
No clue, man.
How quick this could turn around. We have the Democratic Party has gone so far left that they want to be full communists, like
Yeah.
full on control of everything that you do, everything that you see, like everything that you hear.
Yep.
You know, everything that you eat, everything that you know, what your job is. Nobody should make this much money. Nobody should make that much money. Everybody should pay their fair share of taxes, this and that. It's like, hold on a minute. Like, if everybody's going to pay their fair share, then everybody needs to pay their damn fair share. Because there's a lot of the population paying taxes versus the population that's not.
Exactly.
You know, and it's a real threat right now when we got millions of people flooding our border, flooding across.
It's nonstop.
Flooding non-stop. It's just like this. It's like the tap just won't stop, right? And it's like we either turn that off or we prepare for something to happen, because they might be catching 2% of the bad guys.
And there's folks that are coming across that do have various ties to unique organizations overseas that could have influence, and it's an alarming thing coming from intelligence background. We were dealing with that stuff, in 2010, 2009, 8. I mean, there was such an influence across these bases that it's not something brand new. It's something that's been happening now. It's just happening at a larger volume, and can't put our finger in that hole.
Yeah, I mean that's another. We can have that conversation all day.
Yeah,
about what needs to be done there. But let's tell people about your podcast, because it's pretty badass what you're doing.
Yeah,
and I just want people to be able to check it out.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, the podcast is called Rescue, and it is a podcast that is kind of more storytelling. Like, I am telling the story with the people that were actually there in these really unique and kind of inspiring rescue stories all around the world. And, some of the stories go as far back as, 10, 20 years. Some of them are rock climbing, where it's, one guy is climbing with another guy, and he, has to leave his buddy hanging on the mountain that just got hit by a rock, ultimately to save his life. It is the average commuter who's on a train every day going to work. Train derails. He took 1 hour class of, first aid training and saves 30 or 40 people. It's the people that, that are just kind of your average person. They're not looking to be heroes. They just kind of wind up that way by willing to sacrifice themselves, put their, themselves on the line and save somebody else. I mean, it's pretty inspiring, and I wish more younger people would listen to it, because that's what heroes are. You could see them walking amongst the street, and maybe that guy over there pulled somebody out of a burning car, a year and a half ago. They just kind of live with it.
You would never know.
You would never know. And I think those stories for me are really inspiring, because it's like, it's like that humble warrior. I think it was God, I can't remember his name, but was it Mike Singletary? I think it was. Good people talk about themselves. Great people have others talk about them.
Yeah.
And this is really what it is. It's like, I want to be the guy that talks about these awesome people. Do you remember the baby Jessica story? The little baby that fell down the well in Midland, Texas?
Oh, yeah.
So there's tons of people that were there to try to help this girl get out, but it was one guy that was in Louisiana selling some new high-speed drilling equipment that was able to get there, cut a hole in this pipe, and then help pull that baby out. But his story has never been told. But that one guy was the determining factor now. And baby Jessica, who's 37, has 2 kids and is married. It's all these sort of unique stories that we don't kind of get to hear everyone's kind of input. So we're just trying to shed that light on them, share those stories. And
it's kind of like the Challenger story that you were telling.
Yeah, the Challenger story. That's one where it's International Space Station. We all remember when the Challenger blew up. They were actually going up to relieve some folks in the International Space Station. They didn't get that relief. We didn't really have any kind of clue on what was going on, but how they get down back to Earth, who they had to team up with, all the steps they had to go through. It's just one of those stories of like heroism in the purest form. So,
yeah. So check it out. It's called Rescue.
Rescue, yeah.
And it's on YouTube? Is that where you're is it Spotify, YouTube?
It's all
platforms?
All platforms.
Apple, Google.
Yeah, Apple. They have there's a link. Dude, this all
Do you have a website?
Yeah, that's
DonnyDust.com.
Yeah,
you can find everything you need to know on there.
Yeah. The whole podcast thing is new to me, so like it's fun. I enjoy it. More importantly, I like to be able to be part of their stories, because like some of the episodes take place here in Colorado. Some are in the middle of the ocean. Some are out in like Igloolik, the Nunavut area. So it's pretty amazing. Yeah. It's all around the world, and I think there's a lot of great heroes out there, and sometimes their stories don't get told, and I'm happy to do it.
It's pretty badass, man.
I enjoy it.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, man.
This was awesome. I can't wait to get up in the mountains with you and do some real survival shit.
Yeah, man. We'll get out there. We'll get some
I'm thinking we just do it in December.
I'm down for December. December's a great time. The best thing about Colorado is not a lot of people like to go out when it's cold.
Yeah.
That's when, like, my species, we do well. My people, we breed well. We're warmer in certain regions, you know what I mean? So it's like you would do perfectly fine. We'll spend a chunk of change kind of getting things ready, and then we'll go out like a couple savages and see what we can hunt up, and then maybe eat, maybe not eat. That's kind of the beauty of it. I'll bring my dog Finn, who's great on. He'll throw anything up into a tree, and as long as we feed him first, he's happy. He'll keep chasing down rabbits, pulling out moles and voles and stuff. And
hell yeah,
finds elk legs, eat those up.
I think people would love to just see us do that. You know what I mean? Like see how we actually do it. Because I think there's a lot of shows, like survival shows now.
Oh yeah.
You know, you got Naked and Afraid. You got Alone.
Yeah.
You got what's that one on Netflix?
Outlast.
Yeah. They wanted me to do that Outlast show.
Did you?
Yeah.
I consulted on that.
And it was the whole month of October.
Yeah.
And I had that elk tag up in Montana, and I was like,
it's an easy sell for you. I'm going hunting.
I was like, I don't really, you know. And the other thing is that like the fact that there's other factors there where it's like you have a producer who can paint you in a certain light.
Yeah.
And if I'm hungry and somebody takes my fucking sleeping bag,
it's game over, dude.
I'm fucking gonna go into straight primal mode.
Yeah. Viking raiding mode.
Yeah, I'm gonna go raid their camp. Like,
Bingo.
You know, and I just think that like once I figure out that there are no rules, okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do what I gotta do to survive.
Push those limits, yeah.
That's my DNA. To pillage.
That's it, man. No. I mean, I was on Alone. I was on Mud, Sweat, and Beards. I mean, I've brought Cardi B out to survive in the woods. I've been on several different shows, and I can tell you the shows.
Hold on
a minute.
Can we go back to Cardi B?
You just said that like nonchalant. What was Cardi? You took Cardi B out?
I did, yeah. It was the most unique thing I'd ever done. It was for like, God, all the man stuff we talked about. Like I still have it, just for the record, even though I brought Cardi B. So yeah, Cardi B. It was an Earth Day thing. She had a show called Cardi Tries where she was trying all these things. So they hit me up and they're like, we'd like you to bring her out in the woods and show her how to survive and stuff. So it's like, yeah, this is too easy. So I had to fly out to California, the woods, and they picked me up in this nice car. There was all these amenities. I really felt like a movie star for the very first time in my life. And I'm there with a buckskin bag, a bow, and an atlatl. And they're like, your trailer's over there. I'm like, I don't need a trailer. They're like, that's your trailer. And I'm like, all right. So I walk over to my trailer. There's a little guy standing there. He's like, hello, Mr. Dust. And I'm like, that's not, you can call me Donny. He's like, I'll be your assistant for the day. I'm like, I don't need an assistant in any way, shape, or form. He's like, let me get your bags. I'm like, don't touch my shit. Like, I got it. So I go inside this trailer, and it's littered with like jerky and all these snacks. And I was like, this is fucking great. Like, these are all mine. Like, yeah. So I steal everything in there. I mean, it's free food, you know? So then I kind of walk out, and he's like, you know, can I get you anything? I'm like, look, man, I really don't need you. He's like, look, let me tell you, my one job here is to be your assistant. So please just let me help you. I'm like, all right, dude, pound it. I got you. I'm not going to have you do anything, but I'm not going to, you know, make you feel kind of weird. But there was nothing but food trucks and all this sort of stuff around. And then Cardi B walks out. She was real nice. She, you know, knew I had kids, and she was real excited. And then we went and we shot bows. She shot a balloon. That was pretty cool. She ate rabbit jerky, snapping turtle, and venison. I gave her that. She drank dirty water from my sock. I filtered it out, and she was like, oh. She drank that. She slept in a leaf bed. She made a fire with a ferro rod. So she went through, you know, all of it. It was just kind of like her experiencing it in a totally different way. But yeah, it was a good time, man. I mean, I got a lot of snacks out of it. So there's no complaining there, but you know. I mean, it's
snapping turtle's actually really good.
I enjoy snapping turtle.
I think it's delicious.
It's
especially if you make a soup.
Yeah, man. Boil it right in that.
I mean, we used to pull some giant snapping turtles out. So
Yeah.
like just huge.
Grab by that plier.
Yep.
Just extend that neck and swap them off. Yeah. Man, I remember doing that.
And you got to watch the head because it'll still bite you. You know, they got lockjaw.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, they'll still bite. You didn't know that?
No,
That's one thing I have never killed is a snapping turtle.
Yeah,
That's the only thing you haven't. You killed everything else, huh?
Well, I mean, like as far as like average stuff that I'm thinking about that you're talking about here.
There's not a lot of snapper turtles here in Colorado, though, are there? I don't know if I've ever seen one.
And I think in the southern portion of the state where there's what is it? That Walsenburg.
Yeah.
There's some out there.
I've found some big. I mean, bigger than this table up north on the Platte.
Oh, really?
But like, you just look at them and you're like, oh man, that's way cool. Like, I moved one off a road once. It's like it was this huge. It was this huge turtle. It did not cross my mind. I'm like, you look like delicious. Like,
turtle soup. Like that was something that was big in my hometown. Guys would make turtle soup, and it was delicious.
I like turtle. I did one in Texas where, as I was cleaning it had a bunch of eggs in it, and I was like, turtle meat and eggs. This is perfect.
What were the eggs like? How'd that taste? Did you crack them? And
no, so they're all soft, right? So because they were still inside, they weren't like laid on the ground, so they were still soft, and they don't boil up. Like they don't turn into a hard-boiled egg. They just kind of cook in a certain way, kind of like a mush. But I just kind of tore the eggs open and just kind of squeezed them.
Just
down.
raw.
Well, they were boiling in this like the shell of the turtle mixed with its blood and the meat, which is I've always found if you're cooking turtle to incorporate some of the blood, it just kind of helps with the flavoring. And then I dropped the eggs in there, but since they're liquid filled, more importantly, they're supposed to maintain a certain level of moisture inside the body. That's how they still were. So they weren't the dropped eggs on the ground. They were just kind of like you ever had like not balut, kind of like
a fish egg,
kind of like a fish egg where it's like a little slimy,
gel.
a little salty, a little jelly, like that. It was good though. I mean,
not bad.
I got some slack on it from online. People were like, "We love turtles." I'm like, "They're fucking delicious." I know.
Yeah,
and you get a cool bowl at the end of it. You know, it's like a Happy Meal.
And there's plenty of snapper turtles, right? God. We're not out here killing sea turtles, right? Relax.
Yeah.
And now that we're not using straws, you know, we're really we're really helping the turtles out.
Yeah, man. I did get slack once. I was catching puffin in Iceland, and you catch puffin with a net. Did you see that one? And I had to build this 16-foot drift wood net, crafted the net, and myself and my partner at the time. We're standing on this cliff's edge. And as the puffins, they fly by the cliffs, they kind of skirt the cliffs and then eventually go out in the water. So I've got the net, he's on the other end, and we're like, here comes a puffin. We throw this thing up in the air, and we catch the puffins in there and just snap their necks. We probably walked about 6 or 7. Now, you can't hunt puffins anywhere in the world except for Iceland because it's part of their history and their traditions. So people weren't exactly happy that we were killing these cute, adorable little birds, but puffin meat is phenomenal. So
really?
Living in this shelter. So I clean all the puffins. You can't eat the skin. The skin is the one thing that will make you like vomit. I guess it's really oily because all they eat are like sardines and fish. So I remove all the skin and then I start smoking these puffin off this like Russian driftwood that's come across, and these things come out just like this perfect kind of, man, I'm kind of getting a chub, but it's like this perfect red color that's just like, you peel it apart and you're like, oh my God. And it's like that. It's like an upland game bird.
Yeah.
It looks red, but it's got that brown tint to it. It's just
fucking delicious. And when you smoke it like that, like it keeps the moisture. It's not dry.
Yeah. You smoke them, and then as soon as you eat all that meat, you put them in a pot, you boil them out, you get that broth, pick apart the meat. So every animal should be 3 meals.
Yeah.
Direct consumption, eating the flesh, and then you should always take, the leftover bits, boil them down, and drink all that broth, all that fat. That's how you get a lot of nutrients. And then the last meal would be all the little bits and pieces of just gnawing on bones and stuff.
Yeah, the marrow.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I love bone marrow.
Bone marrow's great.
I think it's, people don't like the consistency of it because it's kind of like once you roast it, because like I think you're supposed to roast it, right? Like you just put it on
You can eat it raw.
You just eat it raw?
Crack it, smear it out. Like with some of the bison, you crack it, smear it, and you can spread it like
on some bread.
Oh,
it's so good.
Butter. It is, man.
Like a little crispy piece of toast. It's so good.
That and duck fat.
Yeah.
Sign me up, man.
Yeah. I'm there for it.
Yeah, man.
Well, shit, man. I can't wait to do some of this cool stuff with you.
Let's get it done.
We got to wrap it up, though. How long do we go?
Almost 2.5 hours. We're at 2:27 for the record. So probably 2 hours, 25 minutes.
Yeah, and I could go for another 2 hours talking.
I could listen to it talk. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, this is a blast, man.
Yeah, thanks, brother.
Yeah,
appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you. Thank you.